Hey there, I'm Brittany, and I've got a hell of a story to tell you. I'm 33, and up until recently, I was working as a cosmetologist at this fancy clinic downtown. It wasn't a bad gig, you know? Decent pay, nice clients, and I got to make people feel good about themselves. But I always had this itch, this dream of running my own show. Now, let me introduce you to the other main character in this clusterfuck of a story, my husband. Well, ex-husband now, but we'll get to that juicy bit later. Let's call him Jack. Jack's 5 years older than me and used to work as a manager at some big shot construction company. We've been married for 3 years and we're living in my apartment. Babe, I'm telling you, opening your own place is the way to go, Jack would say, lounging on the couch with a beer in hand. You be the boss, set your own hours. It's the dream, right? I'd nod, excitement bubbling up inside me. Yeah, you're right. But it's gonna take a lot of work and money to get there. Jack would wave his hand dismissively. Don't worry about that. We'll figure it out. I'll support us while you get it off the ground. You focus on being a kick-ass business owner. So, I started saving. Every extra penny went into my business fund. No more fancy dinners, no new clothes, nothing. I was on a mission. Geez, Britt, you don't have to be so strict, Jack would complain when I'd refuse to order takeout for the 3rd time in a week. Every dollar counts, Jack, I'd reply, heating up some leftovers. We agreed on this, remember? He'd grumble but eventually nod. Yeah. You're right. It'll be worth it in the end. Now, I should probably mention that Jack had been married before. He told me he'd left his apartment to his ex-wife after their divorce. They'd been together for 5 years, and that was about all I knew. Whenever I tried to bring it up, he'd get all cagey. Months went by, and finally, I felt ready to take the plunge. I quit my job at the clinic, got my license, found the perfect little space, and started renovating. Every day was a whirlwind of decisions, what equipment to buy, how to decorate. Finally, after what felt like forever, I was ready to open. I worked my ass off, 7 days a week, from dawn till way past dusk. I barely saw Jack during those first few weeks. When I'd get home, he'd be asleep. When I left in the morning, he was still snoring away. One day, I was in the middle of a facial when my phone started buzzing like crazy. I ignored it at first, I'm a professional, after all. But when it wouldn't stop, I started to worry. What if something had happened to Jack? As soon as my client left, I checked my phone. 5 missed calls from my mother-in-law, Sandra. My stomach dropped. Sandra never called unless it was important. I called her back, my heart pounding. Sandra, is everything okay? Brittany, thank goodness, she said, her voice shaky. I've been trying to reach Jack all day. There's some kind of scandal at his work, and I can't get through to him. I'm worried sick. I felt like I'd been doused in cold water. Scandal? What scandal? I don't know anything about a scandal, Sandra. Jack hasn't mentioned anything to me. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Oh, Sandra finally said. I see. Well, if you hear from him, please ask him to call me. That night, I waited up for Jack. He stumbled in around midnight, reeking of beer. Where have you been? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Your mom's been trying to reach you all day. Something about a scandal at work? Jack froze, then let out a long sigh. He slumped onto the couch, not meeting my eyes. I guess I should have told you sooner. I quit my job about a month ago. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. A month? You've been unemployed for a month and you didn't think to mention it? What happened? I got into a fight with my boss, he said, his voice bitter. He was being a complete asshole, and I couldn't take it anymore. My pride wouldn't let me stay. I took a deep breath, trying to process this bombshell. Here I was, working myself to the bone, and Jack had been sitting at home this whole time? Why didn't you look for another job? I asked. Jack looked at me then, his eyes pleading. I think I'm burned out, Britt. I need a break. Maybe see a psychologist or something. I just can't face jumping into another job right now. Part of me wanted to scream at him. We had a plan, damn it. He was supposed to support us while I got the business off the ground. But looking at him sitting there, defeated and small, I couldn't bring myself to lay into him. Okay, I said finally. We'll figure this out. But no more secrets, Jack. We're supposed to be a team. He nodded, relief washing over his face. I'm sorry, Britt. I promise, no more secrets. Little did I know, that was just the first of many promises he'd break. The next few weeks were tough. I started picking up extra shifts at my old clinic, working mornings at my office and afternoons at the clinic. It was exhausting, but what choice did I have? We had bills to pay, and I had a loan to repay for the office. Jack spent most of his time at home, supposedly looking for jobs online but mostly playing video games. I tried to be supportive, reminding myself that mental health was important. But as the weeks turned into months, I started to wonder if he was really trying at all. Then, finally, a glimmer of hope. Jack came home one day, grinning from ear to ear. I got a job, he announced. I was so relieved I could have cried. We celebrated that night with a bottle of wine, toasting to new beginnings. For a moment, it felt like everything was going to be okay. Jack's new job lasted all of a month. One day, I came home from a particularly grueling shift to find him sprawled on the couch, beer in hand, staring blankly at the TV. You're home early, I said, a sinking feeling in my stomach. He shrugged, not taking his eyes off the screen. Quit. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What? Why? Boss was a moron, Jack muttered. Wanted me to be some kind of robot. All about discipline and following orders. Screw that noise. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. Jack, we talked about this. We can't afford for you to keep quitting jobs. He finally looked at me, his eyes hard. What, so I'm supposed to be miserable? I thought you'd be more understanding, Britt. I bit my tongue, not wanting to start a fight. But inside, I was seething. Understanding? I was working myself to the bone while he sat around drinking beer and playing video games. The next 6 months were a blur of work, stress, and mounting frustration. I'd come home to find Jack exactly where I'd left him, surrounded by empty beer cans and takeout containers. Any luck with the job search? I'd ask, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. Nothing good out there, he'd reply, waving his hand dismissively. I'm looking for something interesting, you know? With good pay but not too demanding. I wanted to scream. Who didn't want a job like that? But those jobs didn't just fall into your lap. You had to work for them. One night, after a particularly long day, I came home to find Jack actually up and about. He had this weird, excited look in his eyes. Britt, I've been thinking, he said, pulling me down onto the couch next to him. We should have a baby. I stared at him, sure I'd misheard. What? Yeah, think about it, he said, grinning. I could be a stay-at-home dad. You'd go to work, I'd take care of the kid. It's perfect. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jack, you've never even washed a dish in this apartment. How are you going to take care of a baby? His face fell. What, you don't think I could do it? It's not that, I said, trying to be diplomatic. It's just, taking care of a baby is a lot of work. And we're not exactly in a great financial position right now. You're being cruel, he said, his voice low. You don't understand my problems. I laughed, a short, harsh sound. Your problems? Jack, I'm working 7 days a week. I'm exhausted. And you want to add a baby to this mess? He stormed off, slamming the bedroom door behind him. I sat on the couch, my head in my hands, wondering how we'd gotten to this point. It started with the computer games. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone needs a hobby, right? But then I noticed our joint account was hemorrhaging money. "Jack," I said one evening, my voice tight with frustration, "did you buy another game? And, did you upgrade your computer?" He didn't even look up from the screen. "Yeah, so what? It's our money, isn't it?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "We're supposed to be saving, remember? For our future." He paused the game and turned to me, his face a mask of innocence. "Babe, it's an investment. In my leisure time, you know? Don't worry, I'll pay it all back when I get a job." That was the last straw. The next day, I closed our joint account and stopped giving Jack money altogether. If he wanted to act like a child, fine. But I wasn't going to be his personal ATM anymore. I thought that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. The fights started almost immediately. Jack would stomp around the apartment, slamming doors and muttering under his breath. "You don't respect me," he'd yell. "You're trying to control me." I tried to reason with him. "Jack, I'm just trying to keep us afloat. We can't keep spending money we don't have." He stormed off, leaving me standing in the kitchen, wondering how we'd gotten to this point. Days went by, and Jack didn't lift a finger around the apartment. Dishes piled up in the sink, laundry overflowed the hamper, and takeout containers littered every surface. I was working myself to the bone, and he couldn't even be bothered to run a vacuum. Then came the day that changed everything. I came home early from work, a migraine pounding behind my eyes. As I approached our apartment door, I heard Jack's voice drifting through the open window. "Yeah, Mom, I need a new suit for this great new job," he was saying. "Could you spot me some cash? I'll pay you back as soon as I get my first paycheck." I froze, my hand on the doorknob. "New job? What new job?" I burst into the apartment, startling Jack so badly he dropped his phone. "What new job, Jack?" I demanded. He stammered, trying to come up with a lie on the spot. But I'd caught him red-handed. "You were going to take money from your parents? For a job that doesn't exist?" I was shaking with anger. I was going to tell you," he mumbled. "Tell me what? That you're a liar? That you'd rather scam your own parents than get off your ass and find a real job?" The fight that followed was epic. We screamed, we cried, we said things we couldn't take back. In the end, Jack grabbed a bag and stormed out, saying he was going to stay with his parents for a while. As the door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, my head in my hands. I was successful, I was driven, I had my own business. And yet here I was, married to a man who seemed determined to drag us both down. The days after Jack stormed out were weird. I kept expecting him to come crawling back, full of apologies and promises to do better. But as one day turned into 2, then 3, then a week, there was nothing. No calls, no texts, not even a lousy email. Part of me was relieved. The apartment was peaceful for once. No more walking on eggshells, no more cleaning up after a grown man who acted like a teenager. But another part of me was worried. What if something had happened to him? Just when I was starting to consider calling his parents, my phone rang. Jack's name flashed on the screen. I answered, my heart pounding. "Jack? Where are you? Are you okay?" His voice came through, loud and cheerful. "Hey babe, guess where I am? Las Vegas. Can you believe it? Mom always wanted to come here, so we decided to make it a family trip. It's amazing." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Las Vegas? While I was here worrying about him? "What do you mean, we decided?" I asked, my voice tight. "When did you decide this?" "Oh, you know, it was kind of spur of the moment," he said, his voice nonchalant. "I told Mom and Dad about my great new job offer, and we thought, why not celebrate?" I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. What job offer, Jack? We both know there isn't one. There was a pause, then Jack's voice came back, lower this time. Look, what they don't know won't hurt them, right? We're having a great time. I'll find a job when we get back, I promise. And how exactly are you paying for all this? I asked, dreading the answer. Oh, don't worry about that, he said, his voice bright again. I borrowed a couple of your credit cards. But don't freak out. I'll bring you back a magnet or something, okay? Have a great weekend. And then he hung up, just like that. I stood there, staring at my phone, feeling like my whole world was crumbling around me. This man, this person I had married, had stolen my credit cards to fund a vacation based on a lie. Something inside me snapped. I was done. No more second chances, no more excuses. With shaking hands, I opened my banking app and blocked every single one of my cards. Then I called a locksmith. I need my locks changed, I said. Today. As soon as possible. The locksmith came and went, and I was left alone in an apartment that suddenly felt too big, too empty. But I wasn't done yet. I grabbed my phone and made one more call. To a divorce lawyer. Sitting in the lawyer's office later that day, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness, anger, fear, but also relief. As I signed the divorce papers, I realized this was the first step towards taking back control of my life. I was just settling in for a quiet evening at home, the first in what felt like forever, when my phone started buzzing. Jack's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. Britt, thank God you picked up. Jack's voice was frantic. Something's wrong with the cards. They're not working. We can't pay for anything. I could hear the panic in his voice, but I felt oddly calm. That's because I blocked them, Jack. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end. Then, you what? Why would you do that? Because they're my cards, Jack. I didn't give you permission to use them. But we're stranded here. Mom and Dad are freaking out. You have to unblock them. I could hear the desperation in his voice, but I stood my ground. No, I don't have to do anything. You got yourself into this mess, you can get yourself out. That's when he lost it. Are you kidding me? You're putting me in an impossible situation here. You're my wife, you're supposed to help me. Unblock the cards right now, or I swear to God, I'll divorce you. I burst out laughing then, a full belly laugh that felt like it was coming from someplace deep inside me that had been locked away for too long. Oh, Jack, I said, once I could speak again. You're a little late for that threat. And I hung up. The next day, I rented a storage unit and packed up all of Jack's things. Every shirt, every game console, every little knick-knack that reminded me of him, it all went into boxes and then into storage. I knew Jack would be coming home soon, probably expecting to waltz right back into our apartment like nothing had happened. Well, he was in for a surprise. Sure enough, a few days later, my phone rang again. Jack's voice was a mix of confusion and anger. Britt, what the hell? I can't get into the apartment. Did you change the locks? Yes, I did, I said calmly. Your things are in a storage unit. I'll text you the address and unit number. My things? What are you talking about? Let me in, Britt. This isn't funny. I took a deep breath. This was it. I'm not joking, Jack. I've filed for divorce. The papers should be arriving at your parents' house any day now. There was a long silence. Then, divorce? Britt, come on. You can't be serious. We can work this out. Let's start over, okay? I'll do better, I promise. It's over, Jack, I said firmly. I've made my decision. Please don't contact me again except through my lawyer. I hung up and blocked his number. As I sat there in my quiet apartment, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for what could have been. anger at all the lies and betrayal. But mostly, I felt relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. A few days after I'd blocked Jack's number, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, thinking it might be Jack trying to reach me from another phone. But something made me pick up. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Brittany?" "It's Sandra, Jack's mother." My stomach clenched. Here it comes, I thought. The angry tirade about ruining their family vacation, about being a terrible wife, about not standing by my man. "Sandra," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I'm sorry about what happened in Las Vegas. But she cut me off. "No, Brittany. I'm the one who should be apologizing. I'm so disappointed in Jack. I thought he had changed." "What do you mean?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. There was a long sigh on the other end of the line. "Brittany, there's something you should know. Jack's first marriage, it didn't end because they grew apart, like he told you. His ex-wife left him because of his irresponsibility. His lying, his inability to hold down a job, his stealing. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. He never told me." "I know," Sandra said softly. We hoped that living with you, seeing how hardworking and responsible you are, it would inspire him to change. To grow up." Her voice trailed off, and I could hear the pain in it. I felt a surge of sympathy for her. She'd been duped just as much as I had. "Sandra, I'm so sorry," I said. "I had no idea." "No, Brittany. I'm sorry," she said firmly. "I'm sorry we didn't tell you the whole truth from the beginning. I'm sorry we let you go through this. And I'm more sorry than I can say for what Jack has done to you." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "I want you to know," Sandra continued, "that when we found out the truth, how he'd been lying to you for months, how he stole your credit cards, how he'd been deceiving us about having a job, we kicked him out. He's not welcome in our home right now." I was speechless. I'd been so worried about facing judgment from Jack's family, and here they were, standing by me instead. "I don't blame you for divorcing him, Brittany," Sandra said. "You deserve so much better. I hope you don't think badly of all of us because of Jack's actions." "No, of course not," I said quickly. "Sandra, I never blamed you or your husband. You've always been kind to me." We talked for a while longer, Sandra filling me in on some of the details I'd missed. By the time we hung up, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't alone in this. I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed and angry. In the weeks following my conversation with Sandra, life started to settle into a new rhythm. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the familiar routines of my cosmetology office. Without Jack's constant drama and financial drain, I found myself with more energy, more focus, and, surprisingly, more money. But Jack wasn't going to let go without a fight. One evening, as I was locking up the office, I spotted a familiar figure leaning against my car. My heart sank. "Britt," Jack called out as I approached. "Can we talk, please? I've changed, I swear. I'm looking for a job, a real one this time. I'll pay you back every cent. Just give me another chance." For a split second, I felt a twinge of something. Nostalgia? Pity? But then I remembered all the lies, all the broken promises, all the stress and pain he'd put me through. "No," I said firmly. "I'm done giving you chances, Jack. Please leave." I brushed past him and got into my car, my hands shaking as I started the engine. As I drove away, I saw him in my rearview mirror, standing there looking lost. But I didn't turn back. That was the last time I saw Jack in person. He tried calling a few more times, from different numbers, but I blocked them all. Eventually, the divorce was finalized without any further drama. And you know what? Life got better. A lot better. Without the constant stress of Jack's unemployment and spending, my own finances improved dramatically. I was able to pour all my energy into my cosmetology office, and it showed. My client list grew, word of mouth spread, and soon I was busier than I'd ever been. I made the decision to leave my part-time job at the clinic and focus solely on my own business. It was scary at first, but it turned out to be the best decision I could have made. With the extra time and energy, I was able to really focus on marketing and expanding my services. I hired 2 more cosmetologists to help with the increased workload, and suddenly, I wasn't just a cosmetologist, I was a boss. The loan I'd taken out to start the business? Paid off, ahead of schedule. The constant worry about making ends meet? Gone. For the first time in years, I felt financially secure. But it wasn't just about the money. I started allowing myself little luxuries, weekend trips, nice dinners out, those shoes I'd been eyeing for months. Things I'd always denied myself before, thinking we needed to save every penny for some nebulous future that never seemed to arrive. Now, as I sit in my expanded office, looking at the plans for our new treatment room, I can't help but marvel at how much has changed. I'm not just surviving anymore, I'm thriving. And I did it all on my own. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't always easy. There were nights when I missed having someone to come home to, someone to share my successes with. But those moments became fewer and farther between as I built a life I truly loved. Looking back, I realized that ending my marriage to Jack wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning. It was the moment I chose myself, my dreams, my future. And you know what? I'd make that choice again in a heartbeat.
Melissa, you sure about this guy? My best friend, Sarah, always had a way of cutting straight to the chase. Jack's different, I said as I packed up the last of my apartment into cardboard boxes. He's kind, genuine, and he loves me for me, not just some idea of me. Meeting Jack was like breathing fresh air. He was a software developer with a goofy smile that could light up any room. When we met at a mutual friend's party, he spent the evening making me laugh and listening to my stories about long night shifts at the hospital. It didn't take long for us to click. Jack's mom is a bit of a tough cookie, though, I continued, deciding to lay it all out for Sarah. I hadn't told her much about Mrs. Cole. The first time I met her, she looked me over like I was a car she was about to buy, very skeptical. She made a comment about my job, said something like, "Nursing is such a cute little career, isn't it? Like I'm playing dress up or something." Sarah snorted. Well, just watch yourself around her. These mother-in-laws can be tricky. Jack and I had dated for 2 years before he popped the question. He did it in such a simple yet perfect way, during a picnic in the park where we had our first date. It wasn't fancy, but it was us. I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was small but lovely, filled with close friends and family, except Mrs. Cole, who spent most of the time critiquing the floral arrangements and whispering to relatives. I tried to brush it off. I was marrying Jack, not his mom, I reminded myself. Jack suggested buying a house in the suburbs, I continued. It's beautiful, but the mortgage would mean tightening our belts for a while. Damn, straight into the deep end, huh? How do you feel about that? I hesitated, my hands fiddling with the tape dispenser. I'm not sure. It's a big commitment, and with my shifts, it's not like I have a lot of spare cash floating around. Make sure it's what you both want, Mel. It's not just his life, it's yours too. I knew she was right. The idea of moving to a quieter place was appealing, especially considering the chaos of hospital life. But the financial strain was intimidating. Still, Jack was persuasive, saying things like, "We'll make it work, Mel. We always do." And his optimism was infectious. "We'll see," I said finally. "Let's get these boxes down to the truck." It had been a few months since Jack and I moved into our new house. I was still adjusting to the rhythm of paying the hefty mortgage every month, while Jack took care of our other expenses. Life was settling into a new kind of normal until the day Jack came back from visiting his mom, and everything turned upside down. Jack walked through the door, not alone but with his mother, Mrs. Cole, who had a grim look and a suitcase that looked like it housed her entire life. "Mel, Mom's going to stay with us for a bit. She's not feeling great, Jack said, as if it was a small, trivial change to our daily lives. I stood there, mouth slightly open, a frown forming. Jack, when were you going to discuss this with me? My voice was calm, but the annoyance was hard to mask. Look, I know this is sudden, but she's really ill, Jack replied, his eyes pleading for understanding. Mrs. Cole, setting her suitcase down with a heavy thud, chimed in. Those doctors don't know anything. They just want to steal the little pension I have left. I'm going to follow a special treatment plan my friend suggested. She just got back from some island and swears by it. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Jack, we should have talked about this. We could arrange for a nurse or find a good facility. Jack's expression hardened. Mel, I owe her. She's my mom. We're not sending her anywhere. Mrs. Cole walked over and hugged Jack tightly, giving me a look over his shoulder that could chill coffee. Thank you, son. At least someone cares about me. As she released Jack and began surveying the room, her criticism started. All this furniture is all wrong. It's blocking the energy flow. And, Melissa, really, this place is a mess, she declared, her voice filled with a mix of disdain and condescension. Jack rushed to her side, nodding and muttering agreements. I clenched my fists, feeling my space and my opinion shrinking by the second. Over the next few days, my home turned into Mrs. Cole's personal project. Every morning started with her critiques. Melissa, these curtains are all wrong. They block the sunlight and positive vibes. And why is there so much clutter here? Jack was no help. Every time I tried to discuss a boundary or compromise, he stood by his mother. Mel, she's just trying to help. Let's just do things her way for a while. One evening, I reached my breaking point. Jack, we need to talk. Now, I said firmly as I pulled him aside. Your mother is taking over our home, and you keep siding with her. You're my husband. I thought we were supposed to be a team. Jack sighed, running his hands through his hair. I know it's tough, but she's family. We have to look after her. She's old and alone. I get that she's your mom, but where do I fit into this? Am I just supposed to nod and smile and let her redo our entire house? When do my feelings get considered? My voice cracked a bit at the end. Jack looked torn, his face a mix of frustration and guilt. I'm sorry, Mel. I didn't realize it was this bad for you. Let's sit down with Mom tomorrow and set some ground rules. The next day never came for that talk. Mrs. Cole had bigger plans, and Jack, as always, was swept up in her current. I retreated, feeling more like a guest in my own home with each passing day. The tension in our house was ramping up each day, and I was caught in a relentless cycle of exhaustion. Balancing night shifts at the hospital with the increasing demands at home was wearing me down. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling night shift, I collapsed into bed, hoping for a few precious hours of sleep. But peace was a luxury I couldn't afford, not with Mrs. Cole around. Barely an hour into my sleep, her voice, shrill and piercing, jolted me awake. Melissa, how can you sleep at a time like this? I'm ill and there's nothing to eat. You need to take care of me, she bellowed from the kitchen. I dragged myself out of bed, my body heavy with fatigue, and stumbled into the kitchen. Mrs. Cole, I just came off a night shift. I really need to sleep. Can it wait a bit? She was rummaging through the cabinets, clattering pots and pans. No, it cannot wait. I need proper nutrition. Look at this, there's nothing here I can eat. I leaned against the doorframe, barely keeping my eyes open. What exactly do you need? I'll make something quick. This. She thrust a crumpled magazine page at me. I need a meal with these ingredients. They're essential for my condition. With a heavy heart, I started pulling out whatever was closest to the list, trying to cobble together a meal that would appease her. It was slapdash, but it would have to do. After eating, she wasn't done with her demands. Now, come rearrange my room. The bed needs to be on the other side, and hang the mirror on the north wall. It's good for prosperity. That evening, when Jack came home, I was at my breaking point. Jack, we need to talk. Your mom, she's not as sick as she says. I asked her to get checked at the hospital, to get a proper diagnosis, but she refuses. She doesn't trust hospitals. She's doing what she believes in. Why can't you support that? Because it's not practical. I'm a nurse, Jack. I know what care looks like, and this isn't it. She's capable of taking care of herself. She's manipulating us. Jack shook his head, disappointment etched across his face. I can't believe you, Melissa. You're supposed to be compassionate. How can you be so heartless? Feeling defeated, I walked away from the conversation, my mind a whirl of frustration and sadness. This wasn't the life I'd signed up for. I loved Jack, but living with his mother under these conditions was turning our home into a battleground, and I was losing. A month rolled by, and miraculously, Mrs. Cole was prancing around the house like a spring chicken, the picture of health. Her miraculous recovery had me doubting the severity of her illness in the first place. It was high time we discussed her moving back to her place. One evening, as we were clearing the dishes, I broached the topic. Mrs. Cole, you seem much better now. Have you thought about when you might go back to your apartment? She didn't even blink, washing a plate with a slow, deliberate motion. Oh, I've taken care of that. I canceled the lease. I'm staying here permanently. I nearly dropped the dish I was holding. Permanently? Yes, dear. It's for the best. I'm here with family. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't part of the plan. I found Jack in the living room, deep into some game on his phone. Jack, we need to talk. Your mom just told me she's canceled her lease. She plans to stay here permanently. Jack looked up, his expression neutral. Yeah, I thought she might. It's better this way, she's family. But we didn't discuss this. Jack, we can't afford another person in the house. And honestly, her being here it's a lot for me to handle. Jack sighed, putting down his phone. Melissa, it's only been a month. You haven't really given it a chance. We can make this work. We're a family. Feeling cornered, I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts to manage the mortgage and the growing expenses. Meanwhile, Jack's contribution remained the same, but the burden didn't feel evenly distributed anymore. Back at home, mealtimes turned into another battleground. Mrs. Cole insisted on a specific diet, lean, bland, utterly tasteless stuff that sapped the joy out of cooking and eating. One night, as I served dinner, Jack made a face. What's this? It tastes like cardboard. It's what your mother requires, I replied, my patience wearing thin. Well, can you cook something different for me then? Something with a bit of flavor? I clenched my jaw, holding back a sharp retort. Jack, I'm not running a restaurant here. I'm working day and night. If you want something different, maybe help out? Jack pushed his plate away, his mood darkening. Forget it. I'll order something. The financial strain was becoming unbearable. Mrs. Cole, noticing the tension, finally spoke up one evening. Melissa, I see you're stressed about money. I'll give you some each week to help out. True to her word, she started handing me $100 to $200 every week. It wasn't much, but it helped ease the pressure slightly. Yet, the core issue remained unaddressed. It started with little things, missing earrings, a bracelet here, a necklace there. I'd put them down, and then poof, gone. I thought I was just being forgetful, until more items began disappearing. First, it was my gold jewelry, and then household items like a vase and some small decorative statuettes. It didn't add up. I wasn't misplacing these things, they were being taken. One evening, I finally voiced my suspicions to Jack. I think your mom might be taking my things. My jewelry's gone, and now other items are missing too. Jack's reaction was instant and intense. I can't believe you'd think so low of my mom. She's not a thief. With no way to secure my belongings at home, I started taking my remaining jewelry to work. It was ridiculous, carrying around valuables, because I couldn't trust the security of my own home. But what else could I do? Then one day, I came home early from my shift, the sun still high in the sky. What I saw in front of our house stopped me dead in my tracks. Mrs. Cole had set up a makeshift table on the sidewalk, covered with what looked like a garage sale setup. But it wasn't just random knickknacks, it was my stuff, my cosmetics, some clothes, and even personal items, all laid out for anyone to buy. "Mrs. Cole, what is this?" I approached, my voice shaking with anger. "Oh, Melissa. I'm just helping out. You said we needed money, so I'm making some," she replied cheerily, as if she was doing me a favor. "This is my stuff. You can't just sell my things," I exclaimed, grabbing a sweater off the table. "Look, I'm just trying to help. You keep saying money's tight, so I thought I'd clear out some clutter and make a few bucks," she explained, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. I was seething, so that's where her money comes from, which she shared so generously with us. Without another word, I started packing up everything. My hands trembled with rage as I stuffed my belongings into bags. I called Jack immediately, my words tumbling out. "Jack, your mom is selling my things on the street. You need to come home now." He was silent for a moment when he arrived and saw the scene. His mother, caught in the act, tried to explain, but I was too furious to listen. "Melissa, she was just trying to help," Jack said finally, siding with her yet again. "Help? By selling my personal items?" I couldn't hide my disbelief. "This isn't helping, Jack. This is crossing a line." I couldn't take it anymore. The next day, I hired a locksmith to install a new lock on our bedroom door. I moved all my valuables and anything I cared about into our room and turned it into my personal fortress. At least in there, my world remained untouched. Jack was cold about it, saying I was overreacting. "You're locking away from your family, Melissa. That's what you're doing." "Family doesn't steal from each other, Jack," I retorted, my voice icy. He didn't have much to say after that. The house felt more divided than ever, my little locked room versus the rest of the space, which seemed increasingly dominated by Mrs. Cole's whims. For a brief spell, life seemed to return to a semblance of normalcy. Mrs. Cole kept to herself, and my belongings remained untouched. I began to relax a little, hoping that maybe, just maybe, we had reached an understanding. But that peace was short-lived. One afternoon, I came home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, too quiet. Instinctively, I felt something was off. I dropped my bag and headed straight for my room, the sanctuary I had locked away from the world. The door, which I always kept locked, was ajar. My heart sank. I pushed the door open and there she was, Mrs. Cole, rummaging through my dresser, her hands full of my jewelry. The sight of her ignited a fury in me I had never felt before. "Mrs. Cole, what on earth do you think you're doing?" My voice was sharp, laced with anger. She jolted, clearly not expecting me. Her face morphed quickly from shock to defiance. I stormed out to the living room and yelled for Jack, who was in the kitchen. He came running, a look of concern on his face that quickly turned to irritation when he saw the scene. "Jack, look at your mother. She's stealing from me." I pointed towards Mrs. Cole, who followed meekly, clutching my jewelry to her chest. Jack looked from me to his mother, his expression darkening. "Melissa, why must you always assume the worst? She's my mother." "Your mother who's standing right here with my jewelry in her hands." I couldn't believe he was still trying to defend her. He turned on me, his voice rising. "You know what, I'm tired of this, Melissa. Tired of your constant complaining, your accusations, your distrust." His mother stood by, nodding along to every word he said, a smug look on her face. "You don't cook properly anymore, you hide things, you separate yourself from us. What kind of family is that?" Jack continued, his words slicing through any remaining bond we had. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw a stranger. This wasn't the man I married. This was someone else, someone who would choose his thieving mother over his wife. I want a divorce, Jack, I said quietly, the words tasting bitter but necessary. His response was immediate and cold. Fine. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, papers, and cold, silent meals. We agreed to sell the house and split the proceeds. I didn't argue, I just wanted out. I found a small apartment and moved my most precious belongings there, leaving behind a life I could no longer bear. Driving away, I didn't look back. I had new beginnings to chase, and this time I would make sure they were filled with trust and respect, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Jack and his mother could have each other, and I would finally have myself. I came back to the house to pick up the last of my things, expecting it to be quiet. Instead, I was met with fury. As soon as I stepped through the door, Jack was on me like a storm. "There you are, you vile woman. Where is my car?" His face was red, his voice loud enough to shake the windows. "What are you talking about, Jack? I didn't take your car," I said, genuinely confused and taken aback by his aggression. "Don't play dumb with me, Melissa. My car's gone, and you took it because you want revenge." He stepped closer, his eyes wild. His mother, sitting in a chair with a blanket around her shoulders, chimed in, her voice dripping with venom. "She's always been awful, Jack. I told you she was no good." I was speechless. The situation was spiraling, and I had no idea how to calm it down. Before I could gather my thoughts to respond, Jack's phone rang. He snatched it up, still glaring at me. His face changed from anger to confusion as he listened. "What? An accident? My car?" He paused, looking between his phone and his mother. "Who was driving it?" His mother's face went pale. I watched as the truth came crashing down. The room went silent except for the voice on the other end of the phone line, which I couldn't hear. Jack ended the call and turned to his mother, his voice shaky with restrained rage. "Mom, tell me you didn't take my car." His mother started to sob, her hands covering her face. I just wanted to go for a ride. I didn't mean any harm." "You weren't supposed to drive it. You're not on the insurance. Do you understand what this means?" Jack's voice rose with each word. I stood there, watching the drama unfold, the pieces falling into place. Jack's anger boiled over. "Get out. I can't even look at you right now. You're going to pay for this, every last cent." His mother tried to plead with him, but he wasn't having it. He grabbed her things and shoved them at her, pushing her towards the door. "Go. I'll be contacting a lawyer about this." She was crying, a pitiful, wailing sound that might have once made me feel sorry for her. Not today. Today, it was just noise. As the door slammed behind her, Jack turned to me, suddenly softening. "Melissa, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Can we start over?" "Maybe we can." I cut him off, my own voice calm but firm. "Jack, you never stood up for me. Not once. How could I ever trust you to protect me or us? I can't be with someone who doesn't see me, who doesn't believe in me." After the divorce was finalized, and the house sold, splitting the money felt like the last cord tying me to a life that was no longer mine. I found a cozy apartment in a friendly neighborhood. The first time I made the mortgage payment, I was relieved. It was nothing like the suffocating debt of our old home. This was manageable, something that didn't keep me up at night. The place was small, but every corner of it was filled with possibilities. Decorating it became my new project, a way to reclaim my space and my identity. One lazy Sunday afternoon, as I was arranging some books on a new shelf, my phone rang. It was my best friend, Sarah. "Hey, Melissa. How's the new apartment treating you?" Sarah's voice was always bubbly, even through the phone. "It's great, Sarah. Finally feels like I'm breathing again," I said, smiling as I looked around my little living room. "I heard about the lawsuit. Jack really went through with it against his mom, huh?" Her tone was a mix of disbelief and curiosity. I chuckled, not without a hint of irony. Oh, he did. And he won. His mom has to pay for all the repairs to the car. Last I heard, she had to pick up a job because of it. No way. She's working? After all those years of acting like the queen bee? Sarah's surprise was palpable. Yep, reality hit her hard. They'd been at each other's throats since the court decision. It's a mess, but honestly, Sarah, they dug that hole for themselves, I said, not able to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. After hanging up, I thought about how much had changed. Jack and his mother were a constant source of drama, and now, distanced from it, my life was mine again, quiet, peaceful, mine. Over the next few months, I threw myself into decorating my new apartment and taking up hobbies I'd neglected. My evenings were no longer about navigating family dramas, but about rediscovering what made me happy, reading, painting, and sometimes, just watching old movies. One evening, while I was painting a canvas with broad, vibrant strokes, my phone rang. It was Jack. Melissa, hi. Just wanted to check in. How are you? His voice was tentative, unsure. I'm good, Jack. Really good, actually. Just working on a painting right now. I responded, my tone polite but distant. That sounds great. I'm glad you're doing well. He paused, and I could almost hear him struggling to find the right words. Listen, I've been doing some thinking. I cut him off before he could continue. Jack, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. But for me, I've already found it, my peace. I need to focus on that. Hanging up, I looked around my little apartment, my sanctuary, filled with things that brought me joy. The phone call hadn't stirred the old chaos, it had only affirmed my new path. I'm Sarah, and this is the story of how my life took an unexpected turn. Growing up in Millbrook, a tiny speck on the map that most people have never heard of, I always dreamed of something bigger. Don't get me wrong, Millbrook had its charms, everybody knew everybody, and the annual fall festival was the highlight of our year. But for an ambitious girl like me, it felt suffocating. My parents, Tom and Lisa Thompson, worked hard to give me everything, but they were modest folks who never flaunted their wealth. Money doesn't define a person, Sarah, Dad would always say. It's what you do with it that matters. I was their only child, and they poured all their love and hopes into me. Mom would spend hours helping me with my homework, while Dad taught me the value of hard work by letting me help out at the plant during summers. They were simple people with big hearts, and I loved them for it. But Millbrook was too small for me, so after graduating from high school, I went to college in another city. The 4 years at Westbrook flew by in a blur of classes, part-time jobs, and newfound friendships. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make the most of this opportunity. Graduation day arrived before I knew it. As I stood in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, I caught sight of my parents in the crowd. Dad was beaming with pride, and Mom was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I'd done it, I was a college graduate, ready to take on the world. But the real world had other plans. The job market was tough, and despite my degree, I found myself struggling to land a position in my field. After weeks of rejections, I finally got an offer as a secretary assistant at Global Trade Incorporated, a large trading company in the heart of the city. It's not exactly what I studied for, I told my parents over the phone, trying to hide my disappointment. It's a foot in the door, Sarah, Dad reassured me. You've got to start somewhere. Work hard, and opportunities will come. 6 months into my job at Global Trade Incorporated, I had settled into a comfortable routine. Wake up, commute, work, commute, sleep, repeat. It wasn't exactly the glamorous city life I'd imagined, but it was a start. Then, on a particularly dreary Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I was grabbing a quick coffee at the cafe across from our office building when I quite literally bumped into him. Hot coffee splashed across my blouse, and I let out a yelp of surprise. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," a deep voice exclaimed. I looked up to see a pair of striking green eyes filled with concern. The man they belonged to was tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with dark hair and a chiseled jawline. He looked like he'd stepped right out of a magazine cover. "It's fine," I mumbled, trying to dab at the stain with a napkin. "It's just a shirt." "Please, let me buy you another coffee," he insisted. "And your dry cleaning bill." "I feel terrible." I was about to refuse when he flashed a charming smile that made my knees weak. "I'm Mark, by the way. Mark Callahan." "Sarah Thompson," I replied, returning his smile. "And okay, you can buy me coffee. But let's skip the dry cleaning drama." We ended up talking for over an hour. Mark was a rising star at a prestigious law firm, charming, funny, and impossibly easy to talk to. By the time I realized I was late getting back to work, we'd already exchanged numbers and made plans for dinner that weekend. Our first date was like something out of a romantic comedy. Mark took me to an exclusive rooftop restaurant with a view of the entire city skyline. The food was exquisite, the wine flowed freely, and the conversation never lagged. As we stood on the terrace afterwards, the city lights twinkling below us, Mark leaned in and kissed me. It was perfect. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of romantic dates, late-night phone calls, and stolen moments between our busy work schedules. Mark was attentive, generous, and seemed to genuinely care about my thoughts and dreams. As our relationship deepened, I found myself spending more and more time at Mark's luxurious downtown apartment. It was a far cry from my tiny studio, with its sleek modern furniture and state-of-the-art appliances. Sometimes I felt out of place among all the opulence, but Mark always made me feel welcome. 1 year into our relationship, on a weekend getaway to a quaint bed and breakfast in the countryside, Mark got down on one knee and proposed. The ring was enormous, a diamond that caught the light and sparkled like a star. "Sarah Thompson, you brought so much joy and love into my life," Mark said, his voice thick with emotion. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, I was speechless. This was everything I'd ever dreamed of, a handsome, successful man who loved me, offering a life of comfort and security. I pushed the doubts aside and nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, Mark. Yes, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto my finger and pulled me into a passionate kiss, I felt like I was floating on air. This was the beginning of my happily ever after, wasn't it? The excitement of our engagement was still fresh when Mark suggested we visit my parents. "I want to meet the people who raised such an amazing woman," he said with that charming smile of his. We planned the trip for the following weekend. As we drove into Millbrook, I pointed out familiar landmarks to Mark: the high school where I'd spent my teenage years, the diner where I'd had my first job as a waitress. Mark nodded politely, but I could see his eyes scanning the modest houses and small businesses, with a hint of disdain. We pulled up to the apartment complex, where my parents rented an apartment during the renovation of their house. As we climbed the stairs to my parents' temporary home, I could feel Mark's judgment radiating off him in waves. Mom opened the door before we could knock, her face lighting up with a warm smile. "Sarah, honey," she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug. She turned to Mark, her smile never faltering. "And you must be Mark. We've heard so much about you." Dad appeared behind her, extending his hand to Mark. "Welcome, son. Come on in." The apartment was small but cozy, filled with the familiar knickknacks and family photos that made it feel like home, despite its temporary nature. I watched nervously as Mark's eyes swept over the modest furnishings and cramped space. As we sat down to eat, the conversation flowed awkwardly. Mark spoke about his job at the law firm, dropping names of high-profile clients and mentioning the expensive car he'd recently purchased. My parents listened politely, exchanging glances I couldn't quite decipher. "So, Tom," Mark said, turning to my father. "What line of work are you in?" Dad swallowed a mouthful of food before answering. "I work at a wood processing plant just outside of town." He did not specify his position, true to his modest nature. "Ah," Mark nodded, a hint of condescension in his voice. "That must be interesting work." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment, though I wasn't sure if it was on behalf of my parents or Mark. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of stilted conversation and uncomfortable silences. As we drove back to the city, Mark was unusually quiet. Finally, he spoke. "Your parents seem nice. But they're just very simple people. I guess I thought, with you being so polished and all, that they might be different." I opened my mouth to defend my parents, to explain about the renovations, about Dad's business. But something stopped me. A part of me wanted to see how Mark would treat us, if he thought we came from humble beginnings. A few days after our visit to Millbrook, Mark announced that his mother wanted to meet me. "She's eager to get to know the woman who's stolen my heart," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I was nervous as we pulled up to a towering apartment building in the most exclusive part of the city. Mark's mother, Vivian Callahan, lived in the penthouse suite. As the elevator climbed to the top floor, my stomach churned with anxiety. The doors opened directly into a foyer that was larger than my entire apartment. Vivian stood there, a statuesque woman in her early 60s, impeccably dressed in what I assumed was a designer outfit. "Mark, darling," she cooed, air-kissing both his cheeks. Then she turned her piercing gaze on me. "And you must be Sarah." I extended my hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Callahan." She looked at my hand for a moment before taking it briefly. "Vivian, please. Mrs. Callahan makes me sound so old." The next hour was a whirlwind of designer names I didn't recognize and artwork I couldn't begin to appreciate. Vivian led us through her apartment, pointing out various luxurious items and name-dropping her influential friends. Finally, we settled in the living room. Vivian perched on an antique chaise lounge, while Mark and I sat on a sofa that probably cost more than my yearly salary. "So, Sarah," Vivian began, her voice saccharine sweet. "Mark tells me you work as a secretary?" I nodded. "Yes, I'm a secretary assistant at Global Trade Incorporated." "How quaint," Vivian said, her tone making it clear she thought it was anything but. "And where did you say you were from, dear?" "Millbrook," I replied. "It's a small town about 2 hours from here." Vivian's perfectly manicured eyebrows rose. "Well, I must say, this is quite unexpected. Mark, surely you can see that this arrangement might not be suitable." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. Before I could respond, Mark jumped in. "Mother, please," he said, his voice tight. "I love Sarah. We're getting married." Vivian let out a dramatic sigh. "Well, if you insist. When is the wedding?" "I'll need time to plan a suitable celebration. The Astoria ballroom would be perfect, don't you think? We could invite all the right people." "Actually," I interrupted, finding my voice at last. "We were thinking of something more intimate. Maybe a small ceremony in Hawaii, just the two of us." Vivian stood abruptly. "Hawaii? Without guests? Without me?" "I think I need a moment," she said coldly, leaving the room. Mark turned to me, his expression a mix of frustration and disapproval. "Maybe we can find a compromise? Something that makes everyone happy?" Finally, we reached a compromise. We would have our ceremony in Hawaii as planned, but we'd allow Vivian to attend and document the event for her social media. It wasn't ideal, but it seemed like the best way to keep the peace. 4 months after that tense meeting with Vivian, Mark and I found ourselves on a beautiful Hawaiian beach, ready to say our vows. The setting was perfect, golden sand, crystal clear water, and a breathtaking sunset. But the moment was somewhat marred by Vivian's constant presence, her phone always at the ready to capture every moment. The ceremony itself was beautiful, despite Vivian's interruptions. As we exchanged vows, I felt a surge of love for Mark, remembering why I'd agreed to all this in the first place. After the ceremony, Mark pulled me aside. "I have something for you," he said, his eyes twinkling. He handed me a small, elegantly wrapped box. Inside was the latest model smartphone, sleek and expensive. "Now you'll always be in touch," Mark said with a grin. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the pang of disappointment. It was a generous gift, but it felt impersonal, especially for a wedding present. "Thank you," I said, giving him a kiss. "I have something for you too." I handed him a carefully wrapped package. Inside was a painting I'd done myself, depicting the two of us on our first date, overlooking the city skyline. I'd spent weeks working on it in secret. Mark's expression was hard to read as he looked at the painting. "It's nice," he said finally. "Very thoughtful." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of hurt at his lukewarm response. But before I could dwell on it, Vivian swooped in, insisting on more photos. When we returned home, I hoped things would settle into a peaceful routine. For a while, they did. Our life together was filled with love, laughter, and the excitement of building a future together. But as the weeks passed, I began to notice changes. Vivian's influence seemed to grow stronger, even from a distance. She called constantly and even show up unannounced, critique my housekeeping, and often film her inspections to send to Mark. When I tried to talk to Mark about it, he just shrugged. "That's just how Mother is," he said. "You need to be softer with her. She means well." Weeks passed, and I found myself increasingly involved in Global Trade Incorporated's operations. One day, our company was on the verge of signing a critically important contract with an Italian firm. As I sat in on the meeting, taking notes as usual, I noticed our hired translator struggling with the complex business terminology. The Italian executives were growing visibly frustrated, and I could see the deal slipping away. Without thinking, I stood up and addressed the room in fluent Italian.
Signori, permettetemi di chiarire alcuni punti.
I said, smoothly explaining the finer details of our proposal. The room fell silent, all eyes on me. For the next hour, I facilitated the negotiations, switching effortlessly between English and Italian. By the end, we had not only salvaged the deal, but secured even better terms than initially proposed. As the Italian executives left, clearly impressed, my boss, Mr. Johnson, pulled me aside. "Sarah, I had no idea you spoke Italian," he said, his eyes wide with surprise. I smiled sheepishly. "I actually know several languages. I have a degree in international business with a focus on linguistics." Mr. Johnson's eyebrows shot up. "Why on earth are you working as a secretary?" I shrugged, not wanting to get into the complexities of my personal life. It was the position available when I applied. The next morning, I arrived at work to find Mr. Johnson waiting for me. "Sarah, I've been reviewing your file," he said. "Your qualifications are impressive. I'd like to offer you a position as my assistant, with a 2-month probationary period. What do you say?" I was stunned. Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Johnson." As I settled into my new role, I felt a surge of pride and excitement. Finally, I was using my skills and education to their full potential. That evening, I rushed home, eager to share my good news. "Mark, you won't believe what happened today," I began, launching into the story of the Italian deal and my promotion. To my disappointment, Mark's reaction was lukewarm at best. "That's nice, dear," he said, his attention barely leaving his phone. "But are you sure you want to take on more responsibility at work?" Before I could respond, Vivian's voice cut in. She had let herself in again, unannounced. "A promotion? How suspicious. I wonder what you did to earn that." I felt my face flush with anger and embarrassment. "I earned it through hard work and skill, Vivian. Nothing more." She huffed, clearly unconvinced. "We'll see about that." A few days later, I was in the middle of a staff meeting when a commotion erupted in the office. To my horror, I saw Vivian striding through the cubicles, her sharp eyes darting around. 1, 2, 3, she counted loudly, pointing at my male colleagues. "My goodness, Sarah, you're practically drowning in testosterone here." My coworkers stared in shocked silence as Vivian made her way to Mr. Johnson's office. She peered in, then turned to address the room. "Well, at least the boss is old. Though that doesn't always stop some women, does it?" I felt my carefully constructed professional image crumbling around me. "That's enough," I snapped, my voice shaking with anger. "You need to leave. Now." As security escorted Vivian out, I turned to face my colleagues, their expressions a mix of pity and curiosity. I had never felt so humiliated in my life. The opportunity to escape the suffocating atmosphere at home came unexpectedly when Mr. Johnson asked me to accompany him on a business trip to a neighboring city. We were negotiating a merger with another company, and he wanted me there to assist with the details. The negotiations were intense but exhilarating. After a particularly productive day, our team decided to celebrate with a business dinner at a local restaurant. As we left the restaurant, laughing and discussing our progress, I noticed something odd. A car seemed to be following us, keeping its distance, but always in sight. A chill ran down my spine. "Is everything okay, Sarah?" one of my colleagues asked, noticing my discomfort. I hesitated, not wanting to seem paranoid. "I'm not sure. Would you mind walking me back to the hotel?" As we approached the hotel entrance, the car that had been following us suddenly pulled up. To my horror, Mark and Vivian stepped out, their faces contorted with anger. "I knew it!" Vivian shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at me. "Look at her, gallivanting around with other men." Mark stood there, his face a mask of hurt and betrayal. "How could you, Sarah?" I tried to calm them down, acutely aware of the scene we were causing. "Please, let's discuss this privately. You're embarrassing yourselves." Vivian's eyes flashed dangerously. "Embarrassing ourselves? You're the embarrassment. Just wait until I tell your parents about your behavior. They'll see what kind of daughter they've raised." The next day, as I tried to focus on our final negotiations, my phone buzzed with a call from my mother. Her voice was a mix of amusement and exasperation as she recounted what had happened. Apparently, Vivian had shown up at their rented apartment, demanding to speak to my parents about my shameful behavior. My mother, ever the quick thinker, had directed Vivian to the wood processing plant where my father was overseeing a new production line. "You should have seen her face when she saw your father in his work clothes, covered in sawdust," my mother chuckled. "She looked like she'd bitten into a lemon." My father, playing his part perfectly, had apologized for not being able to shake her hand, showing her his dirty, calloused palms. Vivian had recoiled in disgust. She muttered something about wasting her time in this backwater and stormed off. My mother finished. "I think she believes your father is just a common worker at the plant." I thanked my mother for the call and hung up, fuming at Vivian. I returned home from the business trip, emotionally drained and dreading the confrontation that awaited me. As I walked through the door, I found Vivian and Mark waiting for me, their faces a mix of disdain and false pity. Vivian approached me, her voice dripping with condescension. "Sarah, dear, I've had a revelation. I now understand that we can't expect good breeding from you, not when your father is just a common worker with such dirty hands." She paused, taking a theatrical breath and arranging her face into an expression of humble concern. "My heart just aches for Mark. He deserves so much better." To my shock and disappointment, Mark stepped forward and embraced his mother. "It's okay, Mother. I'm sorry about Sarah's parents. They're just at a different level of development than us." Something snapped inside me. I'd endured months of criticism, manipulation, and disrespect, but this was the final straw. "If I'm so beneath your standards," I said, my voice shaking with anger, "then perhaps we should divorce. Clearly, I'm not the ideal wife you're looking for." Vivian's eyes lit up at my words. "What a splendid idea," she exclaimed, not even trying to hide her glee. I turned to Mark, hoping to see some sign of protest or regret in his eyes. Instead, he just nodded lazily, as if we were discussing something as trivial as what to have for dinner. Without another word, I pulled out my phone and called my mother. "Mom," I said, my voice breaking slightly, "it's over. They want a divorce." "Oh, honey," my mother sighed, her voice a mixture of sadness and resignation. "I can't say I'm surprised. Your father and I are leaving right now. Pack your things and wait for us. As I moved to our bedroom to pack, Vivian followed close behind, her eyes hawk-like as she monitored every item I placed in my suitcase. That blouse was a gift from Mark, she'd say, or those earrings belong to our family. I didn't bother arguing. I packed only what I'd brought into the marriage, leaving behind all the expensive gifts and designer clothes that had never felt like me anyway. By the time I heard my parents' car pull up outside, I was ready to leave. As I wheeled my suitcase to the elevator, Mark and Vivian followed, clearly eager to see me go. In the parking lot, I saw my parents' old, beat-up car, the one they kept for sentimental reasons. Mark and Vivian burst into laughter at the sight. "Look at that wreck," Vivian cackled. "It'll probably break down before they make it home." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to reveal the truth about my family's financial situation. Instead, I watched as my father calmly stepped out of the car, holding a manila envelope. "These are the divorce papers," he said, his voice steady as he handed them to Mark. "You'll find everything in order." Mark's smug smile never faltered as he signed the papers without even reading them. He probably thought he was getting the better end of the deal. As I climbed into the back seat of my parents' car, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, anger, and underneath it all, a growing sense of freedom. The morning after my return to my parents' home, my phone rang. It was Mark, his voice cold and demanding. "I want my wedding gift back," he said without preamble. "The phone I gave you. Return it immediately." I was stunned by his pettiness, but quickly composed myself. "Sure, Mark. I'd be happy to return it. But you'll have to come and get it yourself. I'll text you the address." That evening, I watched from the window as Mark's expensive car pulled up in front of my parents' mansion. He and Vivian stepped out, their jaws dropping as they took in the sprawling estate before them. I couldn't help but chuckle at their confusion. They stood there for several minutes, clearly trying to reconcile what they were seeing with their preconceived notions about my family. Finally, my parents and I emerged from the house, purposely ignoring our unexpected guests. Dad casually pressed a button on his key fob, and the massive garage doors slid open, revealing 3 luxury vehicles. We climbed into the newest model, a car worth more than Mark's annual salary, and smoothly pulled out onto the driveway. Mark and Vivian stood there, slack-jawed. What is this?" Mark stammered. I stepped out of the car, feigning surprise at seeing them. "Oh, hello. Did you need something?" This house. These cars. How?" Vivian sputtered. I smiled sweetly. "Oh, didn't you know? My father owns the wood processing plant. He's also a major commercial real estate developer in the area." Vivian shook her head vehemently. "No, that's impossible. I saw your father in dirty work clothes, with filthy hands." "Ah, yes," I nodded. "You caught him on the day he was personally overseeing the launch of a new production line. It's a tradition of his, to be hands-on with every new project." The realization of their massive misjudgment dawned on Mark's face. In a flash, he turned to his mother, roughly shoving her aside. "You stupid, meddling witch," he shouted. "This is all your fault. Look what you made me lose." He then rushed towards me, falling to his knees. "Sarah, baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Please, give me another chance. We can start over." I felt a wave of disgust wash over me. Without a word, I turned and got back into the car. Dad pressed the remote, closing the garage doors. As we started to drive away, Mark and Vivian began shouting apologies and pleas for forgiveness. "Dad, could you stop for a moment?" I asked. As the car slowed, I rolled down the window and held out the phone Mark had given me. "I believe you wanted this back," I said coolly. Mark took the phone, his hand trembling. As we drove off, I caught one last glimpse in the side mirror. Mark and Vivian were in a heated argument, their voices carrying faintly on the wind. I leaned back in my seat, feeling a mixture of relief and vindication. The truth was finally out, and with it, the last ties to my old life were severed. I never saw it coming. At 11 years old, my world shattered with a single conversation. Mom and Dad sat me down in our living room, their faces serious. "Dakota, we need to talk," Dad began, his voice unnaturally steady. I remember thinking, this can't be good. My stomach twisted into knots. Mom took a deep breath. "Your father and I are getting divorced." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Divorced? But they never fought. They were always polite to each other. Sure, we hadn't been on family outings lately, but divorce? What? Why? I stammered, tears welling up in my eyes. Dad cleared his throat. "We've both found other people we want to be with." Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "We'll still both be in your life, sweetie. You'll just live with each of us at different times." The next few days were a blur. I watched Dad pack his things, filling cardboard boxes with pieces of our life together. Mom busied herself redecorating, as if erasing Dad's presence would make it easier. Then came the day Mom's new husband moved in. He arrived with a truck full of furniture and a daughter a couple years younger than me. "Dakota, this is Tom and his daughter, Lily," Mom introduced them, her voice too cheerful. I forced a smile, thinking maybe this wouldn't be so bad. A sister might be fun. Lily looked me up and down, her lips curled in a slight sneer. "Nice to meet you," she said, her tone suggesting anything but. The next day, I tried to make friends with Lily. I offered to show her my favorite books and toys. She rolled her eyes. "Look, let's get one thing straight. We're not sisters, and we're not going to be friends. You're just in the way." As the days passed, I watched Mom dote on Lily. She bought her new clothes, praised her constantly, and even gave her some of my old toys. One evening, I overheard Mom and Tom discussing schools. "We should enroll Lily in Westbrook Academy," Mom said. "It's the best in the area." "What about Dakota?" Tom asked. There was a pause before Mom replied. "Dakota's doing fine at her current school. Lily's, well, she's gifted. She needs more challenge." I slunk back to my room, the words echoing in my head. Lily was gifted. I was just fine. As weeks turned into months, I felt increasingly out of place. Mom and Tom were creating their perfect little family, and I was the odd one out. The day finally came for me to visit Dad. I packed my bag with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Maybe things would be better at his new place. Dad picked me up in his car, and we drove in awkward silence. Dad's new wife, Sarah, greeted us at the door. She was younger than Mom, with long blonde hair and a forced smile. "Welcome, Dakota," she said, her voice overly cheery. "I hope you'll be comfortable here." I nodded, not knowing what to say. The apartment smelled of incense and unfamiliar spices. Sarah led me to a tiny room that would be mine during visits. The next morning, Sarah was brewing some kind of tea in the kitchen. "Want to try some?" she offered. "It's a special blend from Tibet. Very spiritual." Reluctantly, I took a sip. It tasted bitter and strange. Within minutes, my throat started to itch, then burn. I began to cough, struggling to breathe. "Dad," I gasped, panic rising in my chest. Sarah rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop being so dramatic. It's just tea." But I couldn't stop coughing. My vision blurred, and I felt like I was drowning on dry land. "Sarah, call an ambulance," I heard Dad shout, his voice distant and muffled. "She's faking it," Sarah insisted. "Dakota, this attention-seeking behavior needs to stop." I couldn't respond. The world was fading to black around me. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital bed, an oxygen mask on my face. Dad was there, looking pale and worried. "You had a severe allergic reaction," he explained. "The doctors said, they said if we'd waited any longer." He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. I'd almost died, because Sarah didn't believe me. When I was released from the hospital, we returned to Dad's apartment. Sarah was waiting, her arms crossed. I think it's best if Dakota doesn't stay here anymore, she said coldly. She's too problematic. I looked at Dad, sure he would defend me. But he just stood there, silent and defeated. The drive back was silent. I waited for Dad to apologize, to promise he'd make things right. But he said nothing. I walked into the house, not bothering to say goodbye to Dad. Mom barely looked up from her magazine. "You're back early," she said, sounding almost annoyed. I went to my room without a word, closing the door behind me. I was alone, truly alone, and I had no idea how to fix it. The next few weeks were a blur of loneliness and confusion. At home, Lily continued to torment me, breaking my things and blaming me for it. One day, she accidentally knocked over a vase, sending water and flowers cascading across the floor. "Mom," she yelled. "Dakota broke your favorite vase." Before I could defend myself, Tom stormed in. "That's it, young lady," he growled at me. "Go to your room. No allowance this month to pay for the damage." I looked at Mom, silently pleading for her to believe me. But she just shook her head, disappointment clear on her face. As I sat in my room, tears streaming down my face, I realized I needed to find a way out. That's when I remembered Grandma, Dad's mom. She lived alone, taught at the local college, and had always been kind to me. Maybe she could help. Grandma's house was like stepping into another world. The moment I walked through her door, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Her house smelled of old books and freshly baked cookies. It was cozy, filled with overstuffed chairs and shelves upon shelves of books. "How about we have some tea and you tell me what's been going on?" Grandma suggested, leading me to the kitchen. For the first time in months, I felt safe enough to let it all out. I told her everything, the divorce, Mom's new family, Dad's abandonment, the incident at his apartment. Grandma listened patiently, her kind eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, she reached out and squeezed my hand. "Oh, Dakota. I'm so sorry you've been going through all this alone. You can come here whenever you need to. My door is always open to you." From that day on, Grandma's house became my refuge. I started spending more and more time there. We'd cook together, work in her garden, and best of all, read books from her vast collection. One evening, as we sat in her study, Grandma asked, "How are your grades, Dakota?" I shrugged. "Okay, I guess. Mom's more focused on Lily's schoolwork these days." Grandma's eyes narrowed. "Well, that won't do. How about I help you with your studies?" And so began our after-school tutoring sessions. Grandma, it turned out, was an amazing teacher. She made even the dullest subjects come alive with stories and real-world examples. As the weeks passed, I found myself staying over at Grandma's more often. At first, it was just weekends. Then it became a few nights a week. Before I knew it, I was practically living there full-time. The strange thing was, neither Mom nor Dad seemed to notice. When I did go home, Mom would ask absently, "Oh, were you at your father's?" And on the rare occasions I saw Dad, he'd assume I'd been with Mom. It was during one of these visits to Grandma's that things came to a head. I came home from school to find Grandma looking worried. "Dakota," she said, her voice serious. "There were some people from the guardianship service at your school today." My heart raced. "What? Why?" Grandma sighed. "Your teacher, Mrs. Johnson, went to your mother's house to discuss moving you to a class for gifted children. When she asked where you were, your mother said you were living with your father. Mrs. Johnson then called your father, who said you were living with your mother. She realized neither of them knew where you actually were." I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly weak. "What's going to happen now?" "The guardianship service has allowed you to stay with me for now," Grandma explained. "But they're going to file a lawsuit to determine your official place of residence." That night, as I lay in bed at Grandma's house, I could hear her on the phone, her voice low and intense. She was fighting for me, I realized. For the first time in a long while, someone was putting me first. The courtroom was intimidating, all polished wood and stern faces. I saw Mom and Dad sitting on opposite sides, neither meeting my eyes. As I took my seat, I couldn't help but remember my friend Jessie, whose parents had divorced last year. They had fought tooth and nail over who would get custody, both desperate to have Jessie live with them. The judge, a stern-looking woman with glasses perched on her nose, called the hearing to order. "We're here today to determine the living arrangements for Dakota Miller," she announced. What happened next was like something out of a nightmare. Instead of fighting over me, my parents started fighting to get rid of me. "She should live with her mother," Dad shouted, his face red. "I've got a new family now. We don't have room for her." Mom jumped to her feet, her voice shrill. "Oh no, you don't. I have a life too, you know. I can't be expected to take care of her full time." I sat there, stunned, as my parents argued about who didn't want me more. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing how much they were hurting me. The judge's gavel came down hard. "Order," she shouted, silencing my bickering parents. She turned to me, her eyes softening slightly. "Dakota, I'm very sorry you're going through this." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. That's when I heard a chair scrape behind me, and Grandma's voice rang out clear and strong. "Your Honor," she said, standing tall, despite her age. "If I may speak?" The judge nodded, and Grandma continued. "It's clear that neither of Dakota's parents are willing or able to provide her with the home she deserves. I am her grandmother, and I am more than willing to take full custody of her." She approached the bench, handing over a stack of documents. "These papers show that I am financially stable. I'm a professor at Westfield College, with a good salary and substantial savings. More importantly, I love Dakota and want to give her the stable, loving home she needs." The judge looked over the papers, nodding slowly. Then she turned to me. "Dakota, you're 14 now. Old enough to have a say in this decision. Who would you like to live with?" I stood up, my legs shaking slightly. I looked at Mom and Dad, seeing the relief in their eyes at the prospect of being rid of me. Then I turned to Grandma, who smiled encouragingly. "I want to live with my grandmother," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. The judge nodded. "Very well. Given the unusual circumstances of this case, and the clear wishes of the child, I'm granting full custody to Mrs. Eleanor Miller, with visitation rights for the parents if they so choose." Living with Grandma was like stepping into a warm bath after being out in the cold. We fell into a comfortable routine, gardening in the mornings, studying in the afternoons, and baking cookies in the evenings. Under her care, I flourished. My grades improved, I made new friends at school, and slowly, the pain of my parents' rejection began to fade. The years flew by, and before I knew it, I was standing in my cap and gown, diploma in hand. The journey to this moment had been long and sometimes difficult, but as I searched the crowd of proud parents and beaming relatives, I only had eyes for one person, Grandma. There she was, in the front row, her eyes shining with tears of joy. She stood out among the younger parents, but to me, she was the most beautiful person there. As I walked across the stage, I heard her loud cheer, "That's my girl." The absence of my parents was a dull ache, but one I'd grown used to. They hadn't called on my birthdays, hadn't asked about my college plans, hadn't shown any interest in my life at all. But looking at Grandma's proud face, I realized I didn't need them. I had all the family I needed right here. Thanks to Grandma's unwavering support and my own hard work, I'd not only graduated with honors but also secured a full scholarship to Westfield College, one of the best in the state. I was going to study investment management, a field that fascinated me with its blend of mathematics, psychology, and strategy. The next 3 years were a whirlwind of classes, study sessions, and new experiences. I threw myself into college life, joining clubs, making friends, and excelling in my studies. Grandma was always there, a phone call away, ready with words of encouragement or a care package full of her famous cookies. I was in the middle of my junior year when I got the call that changed everything. Grandma had passed away in her sleep. The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment as the news sank in. The following days were a blur of grief and responsibilities. I took charge of organizing the funeral, determined to give Grandma the send-off she deserved. As I made arrangements and wrote the eulogy, I was struck by how many lives she had touched. The day of the funeral arrived, and the church was packed. The mayor was there, along with several city council members, all former students of Grandma's. Famous authors and respected academics filled the pews, each with a story about how Grandma had inspired or helped them. As I stood to deliver the eulogy, my eyes scanned the crowd one last time. Despite a small, foolish hope, I knew I wouldn't see them. My parents hadn't come. They couldn't even be bothered to show up for the woman who had raised their daughter when they wouldn't. Eleanor Miller was more than just my grandmother, I began, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. She was my guardian, my teacher, my biggest supporter, and my best friend. After the service, as I accepted condolences from the long line of mourners, I thought about calling my parents, about screaming at them for their absence, for their years of neglect. But as I looked around at all the people whose lives Grandma had touched, I realized something. My parents' absence said more about them than it ever could about me or Grandma. 2 weeks after Grandma's funeral, I was called to the notary office. As I walked in, my heart skipped a beat. There, sitting on opposite sides of the room, were my parents. They nodded curtly at me, not even bothering to ask how I'd been. The air was thick with tension and unspoken words. The notary, a balding man with kind eyes, cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" he asked, looking around the room. As he started reading Grandma's will, I felt a sense of unreality wash over me. To my beloved granddaughter, Dakota Miller, I leave my entire estate, including my house and all my savings, amounting to $1 million. The room fell silent for a moment, then erupted into chaos. "What?" my father shouted, his face turning red. "That's impossible. I'm her only son. She can't just leave everything to Dakota." My mother chimed in, her voice shrill. "Surely there's some mistake. Eleanor could have at least left something for us. We're family too." I sat there, stunned. $1 million and the house? It was more than I could have ever imagined. The notary raised his hand, silencing my parents. "There's more," he said. Mrs. Miller left a letter to be read at this time. He pulled out an envelope and began to read. "My dearest Dakota, if this letter is being read, it means I'm no longer with you. But please know that my love for you extends beyond this life. You are the daughter of my heart, the only one who truly cared for me in my final years. To my son and his ex-wife, I am deeply disappointed in the way you abandoned Dakota. A child is a blessing, not a burden to be cast aside when inconvenient. Your actions have shown me that you do not deserve to benefit from my life's work. I know this decision may upset you, but it is final and legally binding. Dakota, use this inheritance wisely. Build the life you deserve, the life I always knew you could have. All my love, Grandma." The room fell silent again, but only for a moment. Then my parents turned to me, their eyes suddenly friendly, their voices honey-sweet. "Dakota, sweetie," my mother cooed. "Surely you'll share some of this with us? We're family, after all." My father nodded eagerly. Yes. Let's discuss this reasonably. We can come to some sort of arrangement." But I was already walking towards the door. "Thank you for your time," I said to the notary. "I'll be in touch about the necessary paperwork." As I walked out, I could hear my parents' angry shouts behind me. But for the first time in years, their words couldn't touch me. Grandma had given me more than just money and a house. She'd given me the strength to stand on my own, to face the world without flinching. A few days after the will reading, my phone rang. I wasn't surprised to see my mother's number on the screen. With some hesitation, I answered. "Dakota, sweetie," my mother's voice was syrupy sweet. "It's been so long. We miss you terribly. Won't you come for dinner?" I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Years of silence, and now suddenly they missed me? But curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to come. The next evening, I found myself standing on the porch of my childhood home, a place that now felt alien to me. My mother opened the door, her face arranged in a mask of maternal joy. I noticed the tears in her eyes, carefully crafted for maximum effect. Tom, her husband, and Lily, my stepsister, stood behind her, pasting on smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Throughout dinner, the conversation was strained. My mother kept bringing up how difficult things had been lately. "The house is just falling apart," she sighed dramatically. "The roof needs replacing, the plumbing is a nightmare. And poor Lily, she so wants to go to a good college, but with our finances." I pretended not to notice the pointed looks and unsubtle hints. I asked about their lives, their work, feigning interest as they stumbled through responses, clearly unprepared for actual conversation. Finally, my mother turned to me, her eyes wide with faux concern. "And you, Dakota? How have you been? What have you been up to all these years?" I smiled, deciding to test her. "Oh, I've been doing well. I'm in my final year of college now. By the way, do you know where I'm studying or what I'm studying for?" The color drained from her face. Tom and Lily shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Well, that is," my mother stammered. "It's okay, Mom," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You don't need to pretend. I know you're not interested in me. You're interested in my inheritance." The facade crumbled instantly. My mother's face contorted with anger and embarrassment. Tom started to protest, while Lily muttered something under her breath. "Now, Dakota," my mother began, her voice hard. "That's not fair. We're family. We're just trying to reconnect." "No," I cut her off, standing up. "We're not family. Family doesn't abandon each other. Family doesn't ignore each other for years and then only reach out when there's money involved." I walked towards the door, their protests falling on deaf ears. As I walked out into the cool evening air, I heard their shouts behind me. But I didn't look back. With each step, I felt lighter, freer. A few days after the disastrous dinner with my mother, I found myself standing at my father's doorstep. The house was smaller than I remembered, the paint peeling in places. My father answered the door, his face a mixture of surprise and forced warmth. "Dakota," he said, ushering me in. "It's good to see you." Inside, I met my stepmother, Sarah. Her smile was brittle as she greeted me. "Welcome, Dakota. It's been so long." A young boy peeked out from behind Sarah's back, his eyes wide with curiosity. My half-brother, I realized with a start. He was about 8 years old, a living reminder of how much time had passed. "This is Michael," my father said, ruffling the boy's hair. "Say hello to your sister, Michael." Michael just stared, clearly confused by my sudden appearance in his life. As we sat in the living room, the conversation was strained. My father cleared his throat. "Dakota, we've been thinking. Michael here is very bright. We'd like to send him to Westbrook Academy. It's a prestigious school, but the tuition..." I could see where this was going. "And you thought I might be willing to pay for it?" I finished for him. My father had the decency to look embarrassed. "Well, you see, with your inheritance..." "Dad," I interrupted, my patience wearing thin. "Why are you only remembering me now? Why didn't you call on my birthdays? Or when I graduated high school? Or started college?" Before my father could answer, Sarah jumped in, her voice sharp. "Now listen here, young lady. We're family. You're obligated to help us. If you don't, we'll take you to court and demand our share." I couldn't help it, I laughed. "Actually," I said, once I'd composed myself, "according to the law, we're not family. You both abandoned me. Grandma was my legal guardian. You have no claim to anything." The color drained from their faces, replaced quickly by anger. My father started to sputter, but I was already heading for the door. As I left, I caught Michael's eye one last time. He looked confused and a little sad. I felt a pang of sympathy for him. None of this was his fault. Over the next few days, my phone was constantly buzzing with calls and messages from both my parents. They begged, they threatened, they tried to guilt me. My mother sent a particularly dramatic message about impending homelessness due to debts. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I focused on my upcoming college graduation and my future plans. As I looked at my bank statement, seeing the inheritance from Grandma, I felt a sense of responsibility. This was a chance to make a real difference, to build the life Grandma had always wanted for me. But as I thought about my future, my mind kept drifting back to Michael. He was innocent in all of this, just a kid caught in the middle of adult problems. While I had no intention of giving money to my father or stepmother, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to help Michael in the future. It was something to consider. For now, though, I had my own path to forge. As I sat at my desk, researching investment opportunities and job prospects, I felt a sense of excitement. The world was open to me in a way it never had been before. My name is Sophia, and I'm the youngest of 3 daughters in what used to be a pretty average family. Growing up, our lives seemed normal enough. Dad worked all day while Mom stayed home, taking care of us and the house. I was always closer to Dad than Mom. He'd come home tired from work, but he'd still find time to ask about my day. Mom, on the other hand, always seemed distracted, lost in her own world of housework and gossip with the neighbors. "Sophia, did you finish your homework?" Mom would ask, not really listening for my answer as she stirred a pot on the stove. "Yeah, Mom. Can I go play outside now?" She'd wave me off, already turning back to whatever she was cooking. My sisters, Anna and Maria, were allowed more freedom. Being older had its perks, I guess. Everything changed when I turned 10. It started with a fever and a pain in my knee. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, my leg throbbing, while Mom bustled around making dinner. "Mom, my knee really hurts," I said, wincing as I tried to stretch my leg. She barely glanced at me. "You're fine, Sophia. Stop trying to get attention." But I wasn't fine. The fever lasted for days, and the pain in my knee got worse. Finally, after what felt like forever, Dad put his foot down. "We're taking her to the hospital," he said firmly, ignoring Mom's protests about the cost. The ride to the hospital is a blur in my memory. I remember the cool touch of the doctor's hands, the worried frown on his face as he examined me. And then, the words that changed everything. "I'm afraid your daughter has leukemia." The room spun. Mom gasped, Dad went pale, and I didn't really understand what it meant. Not then. But I knew it was bad from the way the adults were acting. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice small and scared. The doctor knelt beside me, his eyes kind but serious. "It means you're very sick, Sophia. But we're going to do everything we can to make you better." As we left the hospital that day, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a window. I looked small and pale, nothing like the happy, energetic girl I'd been just a week ago. I didn't know it then, but that girl was gone forever. The next few months were a blur of hospital visits, needles, and more pain than I thought possible. Chemotherapy, they called it. To me, it felt like poison running through my veins, making me sicker than the disease itself. I remember the day my hair started falling out. I was sitting on my bed, idly running my fingers through my long brown hair, when a clump came away in my hand. I stared at it, not quite believing what I was seeing. "Mom," I called out, my voice shaking. She came rushing in, took one look at the hair in my hand, and burst into tears. "Oh, Sophia," she sobbed, pulling me into a hug. It was one of the few times during my illness that she showed any real emotion towards me. As the days went by, I lost more than just my hair. My eyelashes fell out, then my eyebrows. Every time I looked in the mirror, a stranger stared back at me. I stopped going outside, too ashamed of my appearance. I was stuck at home, missing school, missing my friends, missing my life. One day, I overheard Mom talking on the phone. It's so hard, she was saying. Sophia's always been difficult, but this, I don't know how much more I can take. Her words stung more than any needle ever could. Was I really such a burden? The treatment seemed to be working, though. Slowly but surely, I started to feel better. The doctors were optimistic, talking about remission and recovery. For the first time in months, I dared to hope. Then, just as quickly as that hope had come, it was snatched away. The pain in my knee returned, worse than before. The fevers came back. And with them, the terrifying realization that the cancer was back too. We need to do a bone marrow transplant, the doctor explained to my parents. I sat there, trying to understand what that meant. It's her best chance. Can we be donors? Dad asked, his voice tight with worry. The doctor nodded. We'll need to run some tests, but yes, parents are often the best match. I watched as both my parents were tested. Mom went first, then Dad. The wait for the results felt like an eternity. Finally, the doctor called us all into his office. His face was grave, and I felt my heart sink before he even spoke. I'm afraid I have some unexpected news, he began. Mrs. Johnson, you're not a suitable donor for Sophia. Mom nodded, looking disappointed but not surprised. But then the doctor turned to my dad, and his next words turned my world upside down. Mr. Johnson, our tests show that you're not biologically related to Sophia. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at my parents, confused. Dad's face had gone white, while Mom looked like she was about to be sick. Dad suddenly exploded. It means your mother's been lying to us, he shouted, rounding on Mom. How could you? All these years. Mom burst into tears. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, just once. As they argued, I sat there, feeling more alone than ever. Not only was I fighting for my life, but now I discovered that the man I'd called Dad my whole life wasn't really my father at all. As the reality of the situation sank in, I felt like I was drowning. My mom's affair, my dad not being my real father, and the looming threat of my leukemia relapse, it was all too much. Please, I begged, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom, where's my real father? He could be a donor, right? He could save me? Mom's tear-stained face contorted with anguish. Sophia, I can't. It would destroy everything. Everything's already destroyed. Dad, or should I say, the man I thought was my dad, shouted. He paced the small hospital room like a caged animal. Tell her who her real father is. But Mom just shook her head, lips pressed tightly together. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, literally fighting for my life, and she was more concerned about keeping her secret. The days that followed were a nightmare. My health deteriorated rapidly. I could feel myself getting weaker, could see the worry in the doctor's eyes as they checked my vitals. And still, Mom refused to budge. It was Grandma who finally broke through to Mom. She came to visit me in the hospital, took one look at my gaunt face, and marched straight to where Mom was sitting. Maria, she said, her voice steely. Enough is enough. That man you had an affair with, he's Sophia's only chance now. You need to contact him. Mom burst into fresh tears. But what about our family? What about? Family? Grandma cut her off. Look at your daughter, Maria. Really look at her. She is your family, and she's dying. Nothing else matters now. I held my breath, watching Mom's face. For a long moment, she was silent. Then, finally, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll do it. The next few hours were a blur. Mom made a phone call, speaking in hushed tones that I couldn't quite make out. Then we waited. The tension in the room was palpable. Dad, or rather, the man I'd always thought was my dad, sat in the corner, his face a mask of anger and hurt. And then, suddenly, he was there. My biological father. He burst into the room, out of breath like he'd been running. The doctors wasted no time. They whisked him away for tests, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the fractured remains of what I'd thought was my family. Hours later, the doctor returned, a smile on his face for the first time in days. "Good news," he said. "He's a perfect match. We can proceed with the transplant immediately." Relief washed over me, so strong I felt dizzy with it. I was going to live. I had a chance. The bone marrow transplant was a success. My body accepted the new cells, and I started recovering faster than anyone expected. It felt like a miracle, like I was being given a second chance at life. But I soon learned that sometimes miracles come with a price. The day I was discharged from the hospital, my biological father came to see me. We sat in the hospital garden, away from the prying eyes of my mother and the man I'd always thought was my dad. "Sophia," he said, his voice gentle. "There's something you need to know. I've always wanted to be part of your life." I stared at him, confused. "What do you mean?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've been sending money to your mother for years, trying to support you. But she always told me you didn't want to see me." The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. All these years, I'd had a father who wanted me, and I never knew. But I didn't have time to process this information. As soon as I got home, everything fell apart. John, the man I'd called Dad my whole life, was waiting with packed bags. "I'm leaving," he announced coldly. "I've filed for divorce." Mom started crying, begging him to reconsider, but he was unmoved. "I'd done DNA tests on Anna and Maria too," he said. "None of you are mine." It turned out John was infertile. He couldn't have children at all. John left that day, refusing to pay any more for us. Just like that, our family income was gone. Mom, who had never worked a day in her life, was suddenly faced with the reality of having to support 3 children on her own. "This is all your fault," Anna spat at me one day. "If you hadn't gotten sick, none of this would have happened." "Yeah," Maria chimed in. "Why couldn't you just die instead of ruining everything?" Their words cut deep, but not as deep as Mom's silence. She never defended me, never told them to stop. Instead, she threw herself into job hunting, coming home each day more frustrated and tired than before. When she finally found a job, things only got worse. She was exhausted all the time and used to the demands of working. And somehow, I became the target of all her frustrations. "Sophia," she'd say as soon as she walked in the door. "Why isn't dinner ready? Why isn't the house clean? Don't you know how hard I'm working to keep a roof over your head?" Suddenly, I found myself playing the role of housekeeper. I'd rush home from school to cook and clean, trying desperately to please Mom and my sisters. But nothing was ever good enough. Every day, Mom reminded me that it was my fault everything was revealed. "You need to atone for your guilt," she'd say. "If it wasn't for your illness, we'd still be a happy family." The weight of their accusations was crushing. I'd survived cancer, but for what? To live in this hell? My sisters hated me. My mother resented me. The house that was once my home had become a prison. As I scrubbed floors and cooked meals that would never be appreciated, I dreamed of the day I could graduate and leave this all behind. "You can forget about college," Mom told me one day. "We can't afford it, and it's not like you deserve it anyway." Her words were like a slap in the face. I'd always dreamed of going to college, of building a life for myself. Now, it seemed like even that was being taken away from me. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Mom came up with a new way to exploit the situation. One day, she cornered me in the kitchen, her eyes gleaming with a look I'd come to dread. "Sophia," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "I need you to go to your biological father and ask him for more money. We're struggling, Sophia. You owe us this much." I nodded silently and made the call. To my surprise, my biological father agreed without hesitation. He doubled the monthly payments, saying he wanted to make sure I was taken care of. If only he knew the truth. The next day, Mom quit her job. I thought maybe this meant things would get better, that she'd take over some of the housework. but no, all the chores still fell to me. The only difference was that now Mom had more time to criticize my efforts. For a while, things were, well, not good, but manageable. Then the money started running out again. And once again, Mom turned to me. Sophia, we need more money. Go ask your father again. Feeling defeated, I made the call. My biological father, bless him, transferred $5,000 without question. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would make things better at home. How wrong I was. The day after the money arrived, Mom took Anna and Maria on a shopping spree. They came home laden with bags from expensive boutiques, laughing and chatting like I'd never seen before. I waited, hoping there might be something for me too. But there was nothing. Not a single item of clothing, not even a cheap t-shirt from a discount store. I was still wearing the same worn-out clothes I'd had before my illness, now hanging off my too-thin frame. It wasn't just clothes either. Mom started buying gourmet foods and expensive cuts of meat for herself and my sisters. For me? The cheapest, most basic ingredients she could find. Trying to cook decent meals with these subpar ingredients was a nightmare. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. As Mom critiqued yet another meal I'd slaved over, I snapped. Maybe if you bought some decent ingredients, I could cook better meals. I shouted, immediately regretting my outburst as I saw Mom's face darken. How dare you, she hissed. You're lucky I didn't let you die when I had the chance. Now shut up and eat what I give you. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the sounds of my sisters trying on their new clothes, I made a silent vow. Someday, somehow, I would escape this. Because if I didn't, I was afraid of what I might become in this house of hatred and lies. As my 14th birthday approached, I couldn't help but notice how different I looked from my friends at school. They had nice clothes, new shoes, while I was still wearing the same worn-out outfits I'd had before my illness. That's when I started my secret savings plan. My biological father had started giving me a small allowance, and instead of spending it, I carefully tucked each bill into my old teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles. It wasn't much, but I dreamed of buying myself something nice for my birthday. But even that small dream was shattered. One day, I came home to find Mom sitting on my bed, Mr. Snuggles torn open beside her, my precious savings in her hand. Mom, no, I cried out. That's my money. Her face twisted with anger. Your money? Nothing in this house is yours, Sophia. You're an ungrateful little creature, you know that? You sacrificed my marriage, your sister's happiness, all to save yourself. And now you're hiding money from us? Something inside me snapped. All the pain, all the resentment I'd been holding back for months, came pouring out. I didn't ask for any of this, I shouted. I didn't ask to get sick, I didn't ask you to lie about who my father was. I'm sorry your life isn't perfect, but it's not my fault. For a moment, Mom looked shocked. Then her face hardened. Get out of my sight, she hissed. The next morning, before anyone else was awake, I packed a small bag with what few belongings I had. I took one last look around the room that had been both my sanctuary and my prison, then slipped out the front door. I made my way across town to my biological father's house. When he opened the door and saw me standing there, tears streaming down my face, he didn't hesitate. Sophia, he said gently, what happened? Through my sobs, I managed to explain everything, the neglect, the verbal abuse, the stolen money. Please, I begged, can I stay with you? I can't go back there. His face softened with compassion. Of course you can, Sophia. You're always welcome here. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. My father hired a lawyer and filed for custody. Mom, predictably, threw a massive fit. She showed up at the courthouse, screaming about how she didn't want to work, how she needed the money my father had been sending. But in the end, it didn't matter. The judge took one look at me, still too thin, wearing clothes that were practically falling apart, and awarded full custody to my father. Living with my father was like stepping into a different world. He was kind, attentive, always asking about my day and actually listening to my answers. We went for walks in the park, talked for hours about books and movies, even took a short trip to the beach. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Loved. Like I mattered. The years flew by, and before I knew it, I was graduating high school. My father, true to his word, supported me every step of the way. On graduation day, he surprised me with news that left me speechless. "Sophia," he said, his eyes twinkling, "I've got something for you." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a deed to an apartment, my very own place, and acceptance letters to colleges in another city. "Dad," I gasped, "I can't believe this." He pulled me into a hug. "It's the least I can do, sweetheart. Consider it compensation for all those years we missed." As I prepared to leave for college, I decided to rent out the apartment. It would provide some extra income while I was away. I hired a reputable real estate agent to handle everything, feeling like a real adult for the first time in my life. College life was everything I'd dreamed of and more. I threw myself into my studies, made new friends, and started to heal from the traumas of my past. For once, life was good. Then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. It was my real estate agent, and he sounded worried. "Sophia, we have a problem," he said. "The tenants have been kicked out of your apartment by a woman claiming to be the owner. They described her, and, well, it sounds like it might be your mother." My blood ran cold. Mom. Of course, she would find a way to intrude on my life just when things were going well. When I arrived at my apartment, I took a deep breath before knocking. The door swung open, and there she was, Mom, looking older but with the same hard glint in her eyes I remembered so well. Well, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Look who's come home." I pushed past her into the apartment, my apartment. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded. "You have no right to be here. This is my property." Mom's face twisted into a sneer. "I have every right. I'm your mother, aren't I? Everything you have should be mine." "Are you kidding me?" I felt my anger rising. "You spent years taking money from my biological father, money that was meant for me. You treated me like a servant, like a burden. You have no claim to anything of mine." "How dare you?" Mom's voice rose. "After everything I've done for you. I saved your life, ungrateful child. I could have let you die, but I found your real father, didn't I?" I laughed bitterly. "Found him? You hid him from me for years. You lied and cheated and made my life hell. And now you think you can just waltz in and take my apartment?" For a moment, Mom looked taken aback by my outburst. Then, her face crumpled, and she began to cry. As I watched my mother cry, her makeup smearing across her face, I felt a twinge of pity. But I'd learned the hard way not to let my guard down around her. "Sophia," she sniffled, her voice taking on a pleading tone, "you don't understand. I have nowhere to go. I've been kicked out of my apartment because I couldn't pay the rent. Your sisters, they've moved out and won't let me stay with them. Your father stopped sending money. I have nothing, Sophia. Nothing." I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the flood of emotions her words triggered. "Mom," I said firmly, "I'm sorry you're in this situation, but it's not my responsibility to fix it. You're an adult. You need to get a job and support yourself." Her tears dried up instantly, replaced by a look of indignation. "A job? At my age? After everything I've been through? No, Sophia, I'm not leaving. This is my apartment now, and you can't make me go." I felt a surge of anger at her entitlement. Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "We'll see about that," I said. When the police arrived, I explained the situation calmly, showing them the deed to the apartment. The officer listened patiently, then turned to my mother. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you're trespassing. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." Mom's face contorted with rage. "You can't do this to me. I'm her mother." But her protests fell on deaf ears. The officer escorted her out, giving her a stern warning about the consequences of returning without permission. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. As soon as the police left, Mom started screaming outside my window, hurling insults and accusations. "Look at her," she yelled to anyone who would listen. My own daughter, throwing her mother out on the street. After everything I've done for her, she abandons me. I closed the curtains, trying to block out her voice, but I could still hear her tirade. To my relief, none of the neighbors seemed to be paying her any attention. Eventually, realizing she wasn't getting the reaction she wanted, she left. Later that evening, my phone rang. It was Dad. "Sophia," he said, his voice tinged with concern, "are you okay?" "Your mother, she came to see me." I felt my stomach drop. What did she want? Dad sighed. "She tried to reconcile, if you can believe it. Said we should get back together, be a family again." I told her no, of course. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right." I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. "I'm fine, Dad. Thank you for everything." The next day, I returned to college, throwing myself back into my studies with renewed determination. The incident with Mom had shaken me, but it also reinforced my resolve to build a life for myself, on my own terms. 4 years flew by in a blur of classes, exams, and new experiences. Before I knew it, I was graduating college, diploma in hand, and the world at my feet. I made the decision to return to my hometown, to the apartment that had caused so much drama. It felt right, somehow, to come full circle. As I unpacked my boxes and settled into my new life, I felt a sense of peace I'd never experienced before. I had a good job lined up, a place of my own, and a future full of possibilities. I made a conscious decision to cut ties with my mother and sisters. The toxicity of those relationships had no place in my new life. Instead, I focused on nurturing my relationship with my biological father, the one person who had consistently supported and loved me. As I stood on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sunset over the city I once couldn't wait to leave, I realized something profound. The hardships I'd faced, the illness, the family drama, the betrayals, they hadn't broken me. They had made me stronger, more resilient. Hey there, I'm Chloe. I'm 28, and let me tell you, life's been a roller coaster lately. 3 weeks ago, I was on cloud 9, getting ready for my engagement to Tom. We'd been together for 4 years, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But then, out of nowhere, my mom called and turned my world upside down. I was in the middle of picking out centerpieces when my phone buzzed. Seeing Mom's name on the screen, I answered with a cheerful, "Hey, Mom, what's up?" Her voice was tight when she said, "Chloe, you need to cancel your engagement party. Your sister just got a promotion at work, and we're celebrating on the same day as your engagement party. You'll have to reschedule." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I've been planning this for months. I can't just cancel it because Kira got a promotion. Why can't she have her party another day?" "Don't be selfish, Chloe," Mom snapped. "This is important for Kira. All the relatives will be at her party, so there's no point in you having yours." My blood was boiling. "No, Mom. I'm not canceling my engagement party. Kira can have her celebration another day." "How dare you?" Mom's voice rose to a shriek. "After everything we've done for you." I hung up. My hands were shaking as I set the phone down. I couldn't deal with this right now. As I sat there, staring at the half-finished centerpiece, memories started flooding back. All those times when Kira, my younger sister by 3 years, got preferential treatment. All those moments when I felt invisible in my own family. I remember when I was 16, and my parents completely forgot my birthday. It was only when Grandma called to wish me happy birthday that they remembered. They scrambled to get a store-bought cake and a gift card, but the damage was done. I couldn't help comparing it to Kira's 13th birthday just a few months earlier, a 3-day extravaganza with more guests than I could count and a cake that looked like it belonged in a fancy bakery window. My phone buzzed again. It was Tom. "Hey, babe," his warm voice came through. "How's the planning going?" I took a deep breath. "Tom, you won't believe what just happened." I spilled everything to him, my voice cracking as I recounted the conversation with my mom. "Wow," Tom said when I finished. That's messed up, Chloe. What are you going to do?" "I'm not canceling our engagement party," I said firmly. "I'm tired of always being pushed aside for Kira. This is our moment, Tom. I won't let them take it away from us." "I'm with you, 100%, Tom assured me. "Whatever you decide to do, I've got your back." I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to focus on my engagement preparations while ignoring the constant buzzing of my phone. Mom kept calling, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. I knew she'd just tried to guilt me into canceling again. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I decided to visit my Aunt Marge to personally invite her to my engagement party once again. Aunt Marge opened the door before I could even knock. "Chloe, dear." She pulled me into a tight hug that smelled of lavender and baked cookies. "Oh, I'm so glad you did. I've been meaning to call you, you know. Such a shame about the engagement, but these things happen, don't they?" I froze. "What?" Aunt Marge patted my arm sympathetically. "Your mother told us all about it, dear. How you and Tom had that awful fight and called everything off. Don't you worry, though. There's plenty of fish in the sea." My head was spinning. "Aunt Marge, what are you talking about? Tom and I didn't break up. We're still engaged." Now it was her turn to look confused. "But, your mother called everyone. She said the engagement was off and that we should all come to Kira's promotion party instead." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "She what?" Aunt Marge must have seen the shock on my face, because her expression quickly changed from confusion to concern. "Oh, dear. Chloe, what's going on?" I sank into her floral print couch, my legs suddenly feeling weak. "Aunt Marge, the engagement isn't off. Mom wanted me to cancel it because of Kira's party, but I refused. I can't believe she told everyone it was cancelled." Aunt Marge's face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "Now you listen to me, Chloe. You're not going to let them ruin this for you. We're going to fix this." She got up and grabbed her address book. "Start with the email. I'll help you draft it. Then we'll hit the phones. Between the two of us, we'll set everyone straight." For the next few hours, Aunt Marge and I worked tirelessly. We sent out emails, made phone calls, and even recorded a video message for the tech-savvy cousins. My voice grew hoarse from repeating the same explanation over and over. "There's been a misunderstanding. Tom and I are still engaged. The party is still on. We really hope you can make it." By the time we finished, it was late into the night. Aunt Marge insisted I stay over, and I was too exhausted to argue. As I lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but think about how things had come to this. My own mother, lying to the whole family just to sabotage my engagement. It was a new low, even for her. The day of my engagement party arrived, and I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Despite all our efforts to correct my mother's lie, I had no idea how many people would actually show up. As I got dressed, my hands shook so badly I could barely fasten my necklace. The drive to the venue felt like it took forever. When Tom and I finally arrived, I hesitated before getting out of the car. "What if no one's there, Tom?" He leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Then it'll be you and me, celebrating our love. And that's all that matters." His words gave me the courage to step out. We walked hand in hand towards the entrance. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears as we approached the doors. As they swung open, I held my breath. To my immense relief and joy, the hall was full of smiling faces. Almost all of our relatives had come, having seen through my mother's deception. The absence of my parents and Kira was noticeable, but it felt more like a relief than a disappointment. Aunt Marge rushed over, enveloping me in a hug. "We wouldn't miss this for the world, dear," she whispered. Tom's parents were beaming, chatting animatedly with my cousins. Even my grandmother was there, looking elegant in her favorite pearls. As the evening progressed, I found myself relaxing and genuinely enjoying the celebration. The room was filled with laughter and love. At one point, my grandmother even cracked a slightly inappropriate joke, causing an eruption of applause and laughter. It was everything I had hoped for and more. The party was winding down when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Kira. "Hope you're happy. You've ruined everything." I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. I wasn't going to let her negativity taint this perfect evening. The next morning, I was jolted awake by my phone ringing. It was my mother. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but I knew I had to face this sooner or later. "Hello?" I answered, bracing myself. "You ungrateful, nasty girl." My mother's shrill voice pierced through the phone. "How dare you?" I held the phone away from my ear as she ranted about how I had humiliated Kira. Apparently, only 3 distant, gossipy aunts had shown up to her promotion party. According to my mother, Kira had been in tears, devastated by the poor turnout. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke calmly. "Mom, I'm sorry you're disappointed, but I've been planning my engagement for months. Kira's party was arranged last minute, and she knew it conflicted with mine." Before I could say anything else, she hung up on me. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty, but a larger part felt liberated. For once, I had stood my ground, and it felt good. A few moments later, my phone pinged with a text from Kira. "I'll make you pay for this humiliation. Just you wait." I sighed, hoping it was just empty words born from disappointment. But knowing Kira, I couldn't be sure. 2 weeks flew by in a whirlwind of wedding planning and blissful engagement happiness. Tom and I were on cloud 9, excitedly discussing venue options and color schemes. For a moment, I almost forgot about the family drama that had overshadowed our engagement party. But reality came crashing back one sunny afternoon when Tom's parents showed up at our apartment unannounced. The worried looks on their faces made my stomach drop. "Chloe, Tom, we need to talk," Tom's father said gravely as we settled in the living room. Tom's mother reached out and patted my hand. "Sweetie, we've been hearing, well, there's been talk that you've been unfaithful to Tom." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What? That's ridiculous. I would never." "We know, dear," Tom's mother quickly interjected. "We've known you for years. We don't believe it for a second." Tom was on his feet, his face flushed with anger. "Who's spreading these lies?" I didn't need to guess. "It's Kira, isn't it? My sister?" Tom's parents nodded solemnly. "We thought as much," his father said. "We wanted to come to you directly rather than let these rumors fester." As they explained what they'd heard, outlandish stories of me supposedly cheating on Tom with multiple partners, I felt a mixture of rage and despair. Kira had taken her vendetta to a whole new level. After reassuring Tom's parents and seeing them out, I collapsed onto the couch, my head in my hands. "I can't believe she'd stoop this low," I muttered. Tom sat beside me, pulling me into a comforting embrace. "We'll get through this, Chloe. Nobody who really knows you will believe these lies." I wanted to believe him, but a nagging fear persisted. How far would Kira go? And how much damage could she do before we shut this down? As if on cue, my phone rang. It was my grandmother. "Chloe, darling," her warm voice came through the speaker. "I've been hearing about this nonsense with your sister. I was hoping you could clear things up for me." I took a deep breath and explained everything: the engagement party drama, Kira's threats, and now these vicious rumors. By the end, I was fighting back tears. "Oh, my sweet girl," Grandma said softly. "I had no idea things had gotten so bad between you two. You know, I think it's time we tried to mend these fences. Family shouldn't be at war like this." I bit my lip, conflicted. Part of me wanted to write off Kira and my parents entirely, but I knew how much family meant to my grandmother. I don't know, Grandma. After everything they've done. Just think about it, she urged. Maybe we could arrange a family dinner. Clear the air. To appease her, I agreed to consider it. But as I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that any attempt at reconciliation would be futile. After days of internal struggle and countless conversations with Tom, I decided to take my grandmother's advice. With a heart full of trepidation, I made my way to my parents' house. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell, my pulse racing. Mom answered, her face a mask of surprise and suspicion. "What are you doing here?" "Hi, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was hoping we could talk. All of us." She hesitated for a moment before reluctantly stepping aside to let me in. Dad and Kira were in the living room, their expressions mirroring Mom's. "Look," I began, my hands slightly shaking, "I know things have been difficult lately. But I want to try and make things right." Kira scoffed, but I pressed on. "I had an idea. Kira, your promotion is a big deal, and it deserves to be celebrated properly. So, I'd like to throw you another party, a real celebration with all the trimmings. I'll even help organize it. What do you say?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, Kira's face contorted with fury. "Are you kidding me?" she spat. "I don't need your handouts, Chloe. You think you can just waltz in here and play the bigger person?" "Kira, I'm just trying to." "No," she cut me off. "You don't get it, do you? I wanted my party on your engagement day for a reason. I wanted the guests to come to me, not you." Her words hit me like a slap. I turned to my parents, hoping for some support, but their faces were hard and unyielding. "Kira's right," Mom said coldly. "You've always been so selfish, Chloe. Always thinking about yourself." I stood there, stunned by their united front against me. It was like I was that overlooked child again, always playing second fiddle to Kira's wants and needs. Without another word, I turned and left, the sound of Kira's angry muttering following me out the door. Discouraged but not surprised, I went to my grandmother's house. She greeted me with a warm hug and a hopeful smile. "How did it go, dear?" she asked, ushering me inside. Instead of explaining, I pulled out my phone. "I think it's better if you hear it yourself." I had made the last-minute decision to record the conversation, a part of me knowing it might come to this. As I pressed play, the bitter words filled the room once again. As the recording played, I watched my grandmother's expression change. The hope in her eyes dimmed, replaced by a growing look of disappointment and sadness. When it ended, she sat in silence for a moment, then reached out and took my hand. "Oh, Chloe," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was this bad. I owe you an apology. Can you forgive me?" "Of course," I said, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. At least someone in my family could see the truth. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of angry text messages from my parents. Confused and still half asleep, I scrolled through them, my heart sinking with each word. "How dare you record us? I can't believe you'd stoop so low. You've always been a snitch, Chloe." It didn't take long to piece together what had happened. I called Grandma, and she confirmed my suspicions. She'd confronted my parents about the recording, unable to keep silent after hearing their cruel words. "I'm sorry, dear," Grandma said, her voice heavy with regret. "I just couldn't stand by and let them treat you like that. I told them their favoritism was unacceptable and that their bullying of you had gone too far." "Thanks for standing up for me, Grandma," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I think this might be the last straw." As I hung up, I made a decision. It was time to distance myself from my toxic family. No more olive branches, no more attempts at reconciliation. I needed to protect myself and my future with Tom. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a new wave of attacks. Over the next few weeks, Kira's vindictiveness reached new heights. It started with whispers at work. Colleagues began giving me strange looks, and I overheard hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when I approached. Finally, my friend and coworker, Sarah, pulled me aside. "Chloe, I don't know how to say this, but there are rumors going around that you have a drinking problem. People are saying they've seen you drunk at work." I was floored. "What? That's ridiculous. I barely drink at all, let alone at work." Sarah nodded sympathetically. "I know, that's why I wanted to tell you. I think someone's trying to sabotage you." I knew exactly who that someone was. But Kira didn't stop there. My social media accounts were flooded with anonymous, abusive messages. Comments calling me a cheater, a liar, a horrible person. I spent hours blocking accounts and deleting comments, but they kept coming. The final straw came when Tom received a message from an unknown number. He showed it to me, his face a mix of anger and concern. "Thought you should know the truth about your fiancé," the message read, followed by a long list of fabricated stories about my supposed infidelities. "It's Kira, isn't it?" Tom asked, his jaw clenched. I nodded, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over me. She's really outdone herself this time. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder how we'd gotten here. How had my relationship with my sister deteriorated to this point? And more importantly, how are we going to put an end to this nightmare? As the weeks passed, I tried my best to focus on my work and wedding planning, pushing thoughts of Kira and her vindictive campaign to the back of my mind. Then, out of the blue, I received a call from an old family friend who worked at Kira's company. "Chloe, I thought you should know," she said, her voice low as if she was sharing a secret. "There's been some drama at the office involving your sister." I held my breath, unsure whether to brace for more bad news or allow myself to hope. "Kira's been, well, she's been acting erratically. Her work's been suffering, and people have noticed. She received an official reprimand from her superiors, and, Chloe, she's been demoted." The irony wasn't lost on me. The very promotion that had sparked this whole ordeal was now gone, undone by Kira's own obsessive behavior. "Thank you for letting me know," I said, my mind reeling. After hanging up, I sat in silence for a long while, processing the news. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but mostly I just felt a profound sense of relief. Maybe now, finally, this nightmare would end. With renewed energy, we threw ourselves into wedding planning. We found a beautiful venue, a rustic barn set against rolling hills that perfectly captured the warm, intimate feeling we wanted for our big day. Choosing our wedding party was a joy. My best friend Sarah, who had stood by me through all the workplace drama, was an easy choice for maid of honor. Tom's brother would be his best man, and we rounded out the party with friends who had supported us through thick and thin. As we sat down to write out invitations, I felt a pang as I realized I'd be leaving out some names. My parents, Kira. It felt strange, almost wrong, not to include them. But as I thought back on the past few months, the lies, the sabotage, the constant stress, I knew it was the right decision. Instead, we filled our guest list with people who had truly been there for us: my grandmother, who had finally seen the truth, Aunt Marge, who had helped save our engagement party, colleagues who had stood by me despite the rumors, friends who had offered shoulders to cry on and ears to listen. As I sealed the last invitation, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. This wedding wasn't just a celebration of our love, it was a new beginning, a chance to surround ourselves with genuine love and support. The day of our wedding finally arrived, and despite all the drama leading up to it, I woke up feeling nothing but excitement and joy. The venue looked perfect, with wildflowers decorating every surface and soft fairy lights twinkling everywhere. As I slipped into my wedding dress, surrounded by my bridesmaids, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The ceremony was everything we'd dreamed of: intimate, heartfelt, and filled with love. As Tom and I exchanged vows, I looked out at the faces of our guests, all people who truly cared for us and had supported us through thick and thin. My grandmother sat in the front row, tears of joy streaming down her face. However, our perfect day wasn't without its drama. Just as we were about to cut the cake at the reception, there was a commotion near the entrance. I saw the security guards we'd hired wrestling someone to the ground, and my heart sank as I recognized the struggling figure. Kira. Tom squeezed my hand as we watched the guards escort my sister away. One of them approached us, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but we caught this woman trying to sneak in," he explained. "She had a can of spray paint with her. We think she was planning to, well." I closed my eyes, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness wash over me. Even on my wedding day, Kira couldn't let go of her vendetta. "Do you want us to call the police?" the guard asked. For a moment, I was tempted. After everything Kira had put us through, it would be so easy to press charges, to finally make her face consequences for her actions. But as I looked around at our beautiful wedding, at Tom's concerned face, at all our loved ones watching anxiously, I made a decision. "No," I said finally. "No police. Just, make sure she leaves the premises." That evening, after the last guest had left and Tom and I were finally alone, I composed a message on my phone. I sent it to my parents and Kira. "I hope you understand now that I'm serious about cutting ties. If anything like this ever happens again, I won't hesitate to go to the police and press charges for harassment, emotional abuse, and defamation. Please respect my wishes and leave me and my new family alone." I hit send, then turned off my phone. As Tom held me close, I felt like I could finally breathe freely. The weeks and months that followed were blissfully quiet. True to my word, I heard nothing from my parents or Kira. It was strange at first, like a phantom limb, but as time passed, I found myself relaxing into my new life. My relationships with the family members who had stood by me grew stronger. Sunday dinners at Grandma's became a cherished tradition, filled with laughter and love. Aunt Marge became like a second mother to me, always ready with advice or just a listening ear. One sunny afternoon, about a year after our wedding, Tom and I were having a picnic in the park when he asked, "Do you ever regret cutting ties with your parents and Kira?" I thought about it for a moment, watching a family play frisbee nearby. "Sometimes I'm sad about what could have been," I admitted. "But no, I don't regret it. We've built a beautiful life, surrounded by people who truly care about us. That's what family should be." I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain: whatever came our way, we'd face it together, surrounded by the family we'd chosen. And that was more than enough. Hey, I'm Elizabeth, and I want to tell you about the day everything started to change in my family. I've got a younger sister, Lucy, who's always been more the quiet type, and then there's me, I'm not so quiet. Mom, Jane, used to be like any other mom, you know, regular and all, and Dad, Thomas, well, he's always been the sturdy type, like a rock or something. Our lives were plain, nothing fancy, just ordinary and happy, until that one day. It all started when Mom's friend, Carla, talked her into going to this self-help seminar. "It'll change your life, Jane," I overheard her saying over the phone. They were always chatting about new diets or some sale, but this seemed different. I didn't think much of it at first. Mom was into her books and talks, and Dad and I figured it was just another hobby she'd picked up. But when she came back from that seminar, it was like she had switched into someone else. She was buzzing, couldn't stop talking about unlocking potential and tapping into unseen wealth. "Thomas, you've got to come with me next time. The speakers, the ideas, they're revolutionary," she gushed at dinner that night. Dad just chuckled, shoving a forkful of mashed potato into his mouth. "Sounds like a load of hot air to me. How much did you say you paid for this?" Mom's face fell a bit. "It's not about the money, Tom. It's about the experience, the growth." "Sure, Janie, as long as it makes you happy. But don't go wasting our savings on every little scheme they sell you," Dad warned, a stern edge to his voice. Things started changing quickly after that. Mom quit her job at the post office, where she'd been for nearly 15 years. "I'm not wasting another minute on that dead-end job. I'm going to invest in opportunities that'll triple our income, you'll see," she declared one evening out of the blue. Her ideas of opportunities included stuff like buying heaps of lottery tickets, sinking money into some online trading platforms, and even attending more and more of those cash-draining seminars. Dad didn't take any of that well. "Jane, you've got to stop. This isn't like you. We have girls to think about, college to save for," he'd argue night after night. "Oh, stop being such an old worrywart, Tom. You've got to spend money to make money. It's called investing." Mom shot back, her patience thinning. They thought we didn't hear them, but Lucy and I heard a lot. Their fights about money, about Mom's new friends who Dad called con artists and swindlers. It got so bad I sometimes wished I could just shut them out, maybe with noise-canceling headphones or something. One day, I came home to find Mom in the living room, papers and brochures strewn all over the coffee table. She looked up, her face flushed with excitement. "Beth, come here, look at this. It's a new investment fund, says it can double our input in 6 months." I frowned, glancing over the glossy pamphlet. "Mom, this looks risky." "Are you sure about it?" "Darling, risk is just the first step to success. You think all those rich folks got where they are by playing it safe?" She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. After Mom went all in with her so-called investment fund, it was like watching a slow train wreck. Every day, she'd be glued to her computer, eyes flickering over stock charts and exclusive webinar invites, talking to her new friends who were just as deep into this mess as she was. "Beth, you gotta listen to this guy. He turned his whole life around, made a fortune out of thin air." Mom would exclaim, trying to get me to watch one of her videos. I'd just nod, keeping my doubts to myself because arguing with her had become pointless. Dad, on the other hand, wasn't having any of it. One night, I caught them in the kitchen, voices raised higher than usual. Dad was holding a credit card bill, the kind that made your stomach drop. "Jane, what the hell is this? $2,000 on what? More of your damn seminars?" Dad's voice was like a sledgehammer, and Mom flinched but shot back just as hard. "You're so small-minded. You have to spend money to make money, Tom. That's how the world works." Mom retorted, her voice sharp as a knife. I remember Lucy coming into the room then, her eyes wide and scared. She hated their fights more than anything. "Can you guys not do this now?" she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stay out of this, Lucy. This is adult business," Mom snapped without turning around, which only made Lucy shrink back, looking helplessly at me. I wrapped an arm around her, wishing I could just whisk us away from all the yelling. The worst part was, it wasn't just the fights. It was seeing how each argument left them, Dad, deflated, sitting at the table with his head in his hands, and Mom, storming off to call one of her business partners to vent. It all came crashing down the day the electricity got cut. I came home to find the lights out, and Mom at the table, surrounded by bills and notices. "Electric's out," she muttered as I walked in, her voice tired and frustrated. "We're a bit tight this month, couldn't make the payment." "A bit tight? Mom, this is serious. We need electricity. What about all the money from your investments?" My voice rose, the worry making my words sharper than I intended. Mom's face crumpled, her usual fiery comeback gone. "It's just, not available right now." "That means it's gone, Mom. What are we supposed to do now? How are we supposed to live like this?" I threw my bag on the floor, frustration taking over. Lucy started crying, and I hated it. I hated that she had to deal with this, that we all did. "I'm sorry, girls. I'm trying, I really am," Mom said, her voice breaking, and for a moment, I saw the old her, the mom who used to make sure everything was okay. But sorry wasn't enough to fix this. Sorry wouldn't turn the lights back on. We were all stuck in Mom's sinking ship, and it felt like we were only going deeper down. The real blow came a week before my high school graduation. It was supposed to be a time for celebration, but instead, it turned into the biggest fight we'd ever seen at home. I was in my room trying on my graduation gown when I heard shouting from downstairs. It was loud, even for them. "Jane, how could you do this to us, to your own daughter?" Dad's voice boomed through the house. I rushed down, my heart pounding, to find Mom and Dad in the kitchen, papers scattered all over the counter. Mom looked cornered, her face all flushed, while Dad was holding a bank statement, his hands shaking. "What's going on?" I demanded, glancing between them. "Your mother. She took the money, Elizabeth. The money we saved for your college," Dad said, barely getting the words out. The room spun around me. My college fund, gone? Just like that? I felt like I was going to throw up. "This is unbelievable, Jane. You've crossed a line. How are we supposed to trust you after this?" Dad was yelling now, his face red. "I was going to fix it, Tom. You have to believe me. I didn't mean for it to go this way." Mom was almost pleading now. "Fix it? How, Jane? How exactly were you going to fix this mess?" Dad shouted back. Lucy appeared at the kitchen doorway, her eyes wide with fear. "Stop yelling. Just stop it," she screamed, and suddenly it was like all the air got sucked out of the room. Mom and Dad stopped and looked at her, but Lucy turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Beth, what's going to happen now?" she sobbed. I hugged her tight, not knowing what to say to make any of this better. "I don't know, Luce, I really don't," I murmured, feeling her shake in my arms. The argument died down after that, but the damage was done. Dad moved out of the house that same night. He packed his bags, saying he needed time to think away from Mom and all the chaos she'd caused. Mom tried to act like everything was normal the next morning, making breakfast and chattering about plans to recover the money. But it was all just noise to me. My head was filled with a million worries about the future. That evening, I found Mom looking through more papers, probably searching for another quick fix. "Mom, why? Why did you do it? Didn't you think about me, about what I'd lose?" I asked, needing to understand. "Elizabeth, I really believed it would work. I wanted to give you more than we ever had, not take away. I thought I was doing the right thing," she said, her voice low. "But you weren't thinking about me, not really. You were thinking about the money," I said, the truth stinging both of us. Mom didn't have an answer. She just sat there, looking lost and defeated. And for the first time, I saw her not as my mom, but as someone who had let her dreams get bigger than her family. It was the kind of realization that changed everything, how I saw her, how I saw our life up to that point. After Dad left, things spiraled faster than I thought possible. He remarried quickly and moved to another city, trying to start fresh, I guess. At first, he called to check on Lucy and me, but those calls stopped coming. Mom had blocked his number and told a story about how Dad had turned his back on us, how he was living it up with his new wife and didn't care to send a dime our way. "He's forgotten about us," just like that, she'd say with a bitterness that colored her every word. I wanted to believe differently, but with Mom controlling all the communication, what else could I think? It was just Lucy, Mom, and me now. College was out of the picture. With no money and no prospects, I took a job at a local diner. It wasn't what I had planned, but dreams had to take a backseat to reality. I was now the one bringing home whatever money I could to keep us afloat. Every paycheck I handed over to Mom, hoping she'd sort out the mess of debts she'd gotten us into. But it seemed like for every step I took to pull us out of the hole, she found a way to dig us deeper. She wasn't working, just constantly hatching new schemes to strike it rich. "It's just around the corner, Elizabeth, I can feel it," she'd say every time I questioned her plans. One evening, after a long shift at the diner, I saw her getting kicked out of the local casino. She was a mess, screaming about being just one win away from getting it all back. I hurried over, my heart sinking. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I thought you were at home with Lucy," I said, grabbing her arm to steady her. "Let go, Elizabeth. I had it under control. Today was just a bad day, that's all. Tomorrow, I'll win it back, double," she snapped, yanking her arm free. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, you're gambling now? With what money?" "I have my ways. And I found a surefire technique online, it'll change everything," she said, her eyes wild with a desperate kind of hope. "A technique? Mom, that's nonsense. You're throwing away everything on a fantasy. Gambling's a trap. It's designed to make the casino rich, not us. I tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't hear it. She just shook her head. You'll see. I'll fix everything. I just need one good run. The next day, she was gone again, back to the casino, as if our conversation had never happened. I felt so helpless, watching her disappear into her delusions while I scrambled to cover our bills and keep Lucy from seeing how bad things had really gotten. Lucy was turning 15 soon, and I knew exactly what I wanted to get her, a set of clothes that would make her feel like she belonged with her friends, who always dressed in the latest styles. She'd been making do with hand-me-downs and clearance rack finds for too long. So, I started setting aside a bit of cash from each paycheck, stashing it away in a small box on my shelf. It was supposed to be a surprise, a good one, something that'd light up her face. I was at the diner when it happened. I came home late, my feet aching from the long shift, dreaming of the look on Lucy's face when she'd see her gift. But the house was chaos. Mom was in a frenzy, the box that held the birthday money in her hands, her face twisted in anger. You're stealing from your own family, Elizabeth? Hiding money for yourself? Is this what you do with the money you earn? You're a nasty rat, that's what you are, she screamed as soon as I stepped through the door. What? No, Mom, that's for Lucy's birthday. I saved it to buy her some clothes. I tried to explain, reaching for the box, but Mom jerked it away. Mom's face was red, her eyes wild. I trusted you, and you betray me like this. You're no daughter of mine. Get out. She shoved the box of money into her purse and pointed to the door. Lucy rushed downstairs, drawn by the yelling. Mom, Beth's telling the truth. She saved that for me. She tried to mediate, her voice shaky. Mom turned on her. And you? You could have been helping out, earning some money. But no, you just sit around studying, protecting your thief sister. I'm trying to finish school, Mom. We agreed on that. Lucy cried out, her own patience breaking. That's enough. I want both of you out. You're both ungrateful. I don't need you here. Mom shouted, her fury boiling over. I grabbed Lucy's hand, my mind racing. Come on, let's go, I said, pulling her toward the door. We stepped out into the cold night, the door slamming shut behind us, our mother's angry shout still echoing as it closed. Lucy clung to me, sobbing uncontrollably. Beth, what are we going to do now? Where will we go? She whimpered, her voice muffled against my jacket. I held her close, trying to muster a calm I didn't feel. I don't know, Luce, but we'll figure something out. We have to, I said, my voice trembling. We stood there, outside the house that no longer felt like home, shivering not just from the cold but from the shock. How had things gone so wrong? How had our mother, the woman who used to hug us and make everything okay, turned into someone we hardly recognized? Lucy and I huddled together on a park bench, clutching our phones like lifelines. The night was chilly, making each breath visible in the pale light of the street lamps. We could call Dad, Lucy suggested quietly, her voice small. Yeah, I agreed, though a lump formed in my throat. It had been so long since we'd spoken. What if he really had moved on? What if he didn't want us? But we were out of options, and honestly, I was out of pride. I scrolled through my contacts, finding the number Mom had made me block years ago. My fingers hesitated, then dialed. The phone rang, and my heart pounded with each tone. Hello? Dad's voice came through, sounding cautious. Dad, it's Elizabeth, and Lucy, I managed to say, my voice cracking. Elizabeth? Lucy? Oh my God, girls, are you okay? Where are you? His voice changed instantly, thick with concern. We need help, Dad. Can we come see you? I asked, the words nearly a whisper. Of course, girls. Tell me where you are, I'll send money for train tickets right now, he said without hesitation. Tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you, Dad, I choked out. true to his word, the money came through within the hour. By the next morning, Lucy and I were on a train heading to Dad's city, our hearts heavy with the past, but hopeful for the future. Arriving at Dad's place felt surreal. He was waiting at the station, looking older but also relieved as he pulled us both into a tight hug. His wife, Sandra, stood beside him, giving us a warm, welcoming smile that eased some of my tension. "Let's get you girls home and warmed up," Dad said, guiding us to his car. Once we were settled in and sipping hot tea in their cozy kitchen, Lucy and I shared everything. How Mom had spiraled, the lies, the eviction. Dad listened, his face growing tighter with each word we said. I had no idea, Dad finally spoke, his voice heavy. "I've been sending money for alimony and your studies every month. I thought you girls were okay." "We never saw any of that money, Dad. Mom told us you stopped helping," I admitted, feeling a mix of anger and relief as the truth came out. Dad's hands clenched into fists. "I'm so sorry, girls. I should have found a way to make sure. I never should have let her cut me off from you." "It's not your fault, Dad," Lucy said, her voice gentle. Dad looked at us, his eyes filled with a kind of pain that made my chest tighten. "I want to make this right. Elizabeth, if you still want to go to college, I'll support you. And Lucy, there's a great school not far from here. You can start fresh." Sandra, who had been quietly supportive, spoke up. "I'll contact my lawyer tomorrow. We'll sort out where the alimony went and deal with your mother's legal rights. Lucy should be with us, legally and safely." I looked at Sandra, seeing her not just as Dad's wife, but as someone who was stepping up to help fix our broken pieces. I got up and hugged her, grateful beyond words. A month had flown by in a blur of new beginnings and healing wounds, with Dad and Sandra's support making every day easier. But then, out of nowhere, Mom called. Her voice was sharp, demanding, as if nothing had changed. "Elizabeth, you need to come back home now. I've stopped receiving the alimony, and everything's falling apart here," she stated flatly as soon as I answered. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Mom, I'm not coming back. Lucy and I are staying with Dad." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "You ungrateful traitors. After everything I've done for you." "Done for us? Mom, you lied to us. You used the money Dad sent for yourself. You even kicked us out. We know everything." I shot back, the old pain and anger bubbling up. There was a screech of rage from her, loud enough that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "Don't you dare speak to me like that. I'm still your mother. Being a mother isn't just about giving birth. It's about being there, and you weren't. I don't want you to call again," I said, and without waiting for a response, I ended the call, my heart racing. Dad looked over from across the kitchen table, his expression one of concern mixed with pride. "You okay, Beth?" "Yeah, Dad, I think I will be. It's just hard, you know?" I sighed, feeling the weight of years lift slightly with each spoken truth. "You did what you needed to do. She has to understand her actions have consequences," he said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. In the following years, life found a new rhythm. Dad officially gained custody of Lucy, who thrived in her new school. I started college, working part-time at a local cafe to keep busy and support myself, a habit hardwired into me. College life was a mix of challenging and exhilarating. I poured myself into my studies, determined to make the most of the opportunity Dad had given me. Graduation day was a blur of joy and tears, with Dad and Sandra cheering the loudest. I had done it, graduated with honors and a job offer in hand. I moved into a small but cozy apartment, enjoying the independence I had fought so hard to gain. Lucy was now in college too, following her passion for graphic design. We were both grateful, so incredibly grateful, for the new life Dad and Sandra had helped us build. 2 years flew by since I'd graduated from college. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. I had a good job that challenged me, and Lucy had just tossed her own graduation cap into the air. Then, one afternoon as I was sorting through emails at work, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Curiosity overcame caution, and I answered. "Elizabeth, it's me," came the all-too-familiar voice, frayed with desperation. "Mom?" My heart sank, a mix of old wounds and wary concern bubbling up. "I need your help. I've lost the house, and I owe the bank more than I can ever pay back. I'm on the streets, Elizabeth. You have to help me," she pleaded, her voice cracking. The news hit hard, but years of distance had given me perspective. "Mom, I can't send you money. But I can help you get treatment for your gambling. There's a place not far from here that..." Her response was a string of obscenities, each word sharper than the last. "You ungrateful trash. You think you're better than me now, huh? Too high and mighty to help your own mother? Mom, please try to understand. I'm offering real help. Gambling has destroyed enough, don't let it destroy you completely," I pleaded, hoping for a sliver of reason. "Save it. I don't need your charity or your lectures," she spat out, and then added, "You'll regret this, Elizabeth." I took a deep breath, steadying my shaking hands. "I hope someday you'll see this was for the best. Take care, Mom." Without waiting for another barrage of vitriol, I ended the call and blocked the number. My heart pounded painfully against my ribs, not out of fear, but out of finality. Back home, I slumped on the couch, feeling drained. Lucy came over, holding 2 mugs of tea, having heard the tail end of the conversation. "She called you again?" Lucy asked, handing me a mug. Her brow furrowed in concern. "Yeah. It was bad, Luce. She's lost her house, is in debt, and still, all she wanted was money to gamble away," I explained, the weight of the call settling around us. Lucy sat down beside me, her presence comforting. "You did the right thing, Beth. We can't drown with her," Lucy said softly, her voice steady and sure. Her words echoed in my mind. "We can't drown with her." It was harsh, but true. I looked at my sister, her maturity and understanding a stark contrast to the chaos our mother brought into our lives. "You're right, Lucy. It's time to really let go and move forward," I affirmed, feeling a resolve strengthen within me. Lucy and I spent that weekend planning a trip together, something to celebrate her graduation and reinforce the new chapter we were both stepping into. As we mapped out our journey, I felt a sense of excitement for the future, a future I was ready to embrace fully. In life, we all make choices. Some lead us into the light, others into shadows. But each step, each decision, teaches us something valuable. For me, it was learning that sometimes, loving someone means letting them face their own battles, and that saving myself was not an act of betrayal, but an act of courage. My name's Sheila, and I've always dreamed of becoming a pediatrician. After years of hard work, I finally graduated from medical college and landed my first job at a local clinic. Life was good, but something was missing. I wanted more than just a career, I longed for a family of my own. One sunny afternoon, my best friend Jess called me up. "Sheila, I've got someone you need to meet," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "His name's Mike, and he's looking for something serious. I think you two would hit it off." I was skeptical at first. Blind dates weren't really my thing, but Jess was persistent. "Fine," I sighed. "Set it up." A week later, I found myself sitting across from Mike at a small coffee shop downtown. He was tall, with kind eyes and a warm smile that put me at ease almost immediately. "So, Sheila," he said, stirring his coffee. "Jess tells me you're a pediatrician. That must be rewarding." I nodded, feeling myself relax. "It is. I love working with kids." "What about you? What do you do?" As Mike talked about his job as an engineer, I found myself drawn in by his passion and humor. We chatted for hours, losing track of time until the barista politely informed us they were closing. From that moment on, Mike and I were inseparable. We supported each other through long work days and celebrated each other's successes. 2 years flew by in a blur of happiness and shared dreams. We decided on a small, intimate wedding. Neither of us wanted anything flashy, we just wanted to celebrate our love with our closest friends and family. The day was perfect, filled with laughter and happy tears. As we exchanged vows, I looked into Mike's eyes and saw our future stretching out before us. A home filled with love, the pitter-patter of little feet, a lifetime of happiness together. After the wedding, I began to communicate more with Mike's mother, Linda. She was a petite woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. As we chatted over dinner that night, Linda couldn't stop talking about how excited she was to be a grandmother someday. "All my friends are already spoiling their grandkids," she said with a laugh. "I can't wait for my turn." I exchanged a glance with Mike, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. We hadn't really discussed children yet, but I knew I wanted them. Seeing the soft smile on Mike's face, I realized he did too. The first year of our marriage flew by in a whirlwind of love and laughter. Mike and I settled into a comfortable routine, balancing our careers with our home life. We talked about starting a family, agreeing that we were ready to take that next step. Linda's enthusiasm for grandchildren only grew stronger with each passing month. At first, her eagerness was endearing, but as time went on, it started to feel like pressure. "Sheila, dear," she'd say during our weekly family dinners, "have you thought about when you'll start trying for a baby? Mike's not getting any younger, you know." I'd force a smile, trying to hide my discomfort. "We're working on it, Linda. These things take time." But as the months passed without a positive pregnancy test, I started to worry. Was something wrong? Should we see a doctor? The stress began to take its toll, affecting both my mood and my relationship with Mike. One night, after another dinner filled with Linda's not-so-subtle hints, I broke down in tears. "Hey, what's wrong?" Mike asked, pulling me into his arms. What if I can't get pregnant?" I sobbed. "Your mom will be so disappointed, and you." Mike cut me off, cupping my face in his hands. "Listen to me, Sheila. I love you. If we have kids, great. If we don't, that's okay too. All that matters is that we're together." His words comforted me, but the worry lingered. I decided to see my doctor, just to make sure everything was okay. Dr. Anderson, a kind older woman with salt and pepper hair, ran a series of tests. When the results came back, she called me into her office. "Everything looks normal, Sheila," she said with a reassuring smile. "Sometimes these things just take time. Try to relax and let nature take its course." We decided to stop actively trying and just enjoy our life together. I focused on eating right and living healthily, hoping it would help our chances. As our third wedding anniversary approached, I started to feel different. My breasts were tender, and I felt nauseous in the mornings. Could it be? With shaking hands, I took a pregnancy test. As I waited for the results, I paced our small bathroom, my heart pounding. When the timer on my phone beeped, I looked at the test. 2 pink lines. Positive. When Mike got home from work, I could barely contain my excitement. I'd wrapped the positive test in a small box with a bow. "What's this?" he asked, looking confused. "Open it," I urged, grinning from ear to ear. As he lifted the lid and saw the test, his eyes widened. Are we?" I nodded, happy tears spilling down my cheeks. "We're having a baby." That night, as we lay in bed, Mike's hand resting protectively on my stomach, I felt a peace I hadn't known in months. Everything was falling into place. The next day, we called Linda to share the news. Her excited shriek nearly deafened me. "Oh, this is wonderful," she cried. "I'm going to be a grandmother. When are you due? Do you think it's a boy or a girl?" "Oh, I have so much shopping to do." As Linda rattled on, I exchanged an amused glance with Mike. Our journey to parenthood was just beginning, and despite the challenges we'd faced, I couldn't wait to see what the future held. The weeks following our announcement were a whirlwind of excitement and preparation. Mike and I threw ourselves into getting ready for the baby, transforming our spare room into a nursery. We painted the walls a soft yellow, assembled a crib, and filled drawers with tiny clothes. Linda's enthusiasm knew no bounds. She showered us with gifts, onesies, blankets, toys, and called almost daily with advice and questions. I appreciated her excitement, but sometimes it felt overwhelming. One day, after she'd announced our news to what felt like the entire town, I had to have a word with her. "Linda," I said gently, "we're thrilled you're excited about the baby. But could you maybe tone it down a bit? We're trying not to tell everyone just yet." She looked hurt for a moment, but quickly recovered. "Of course, dear. I'm just so happy. But I understand." At 24 weeks, I had a routine checkup scheduled. That morning, I woke up feeling a bit off, but I brushed it off as normal pregnancy discomfort. I was examining a toddler with an ear infection when a sharp pain shot through my abdomen. I gasped, steadying myself against the examination table. "Dr. Sheila," my nurse, Jenny, asked, concern evident in her voice. "Are you okay?" I opened my mouth to respond, but another wave of pain hit me. This time, I felt something warm trickling down my legs. I looked down in horror to see blood staining my scrubs. "Jenny," I whispered, my voice shaking, "I need help." The next few moments were a blur. Jenny called for assistance, and suddenly I was surrounded by my colleagues. As they prepped me for surgery, I grabbed her hand. "Save my baby," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. "Please, save my baby." The last thing I remember before the anesthesia took hold was praying for a miracle. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the pain, a dull, throbbing ache in my abdomen. Then I realized something was missing. My bump. My baby. Mike was by my side, his eyes red and puffy from crying. When he saw I was awake, he took my hand, squeezing it gently. "Sheila," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. They couldn't save the baby." Dr. Rodriguez came in then, her face grave. "Sheila, I'm so sorry for your loss. We did everything we could, but the placental abruption was too severe. We had to perform a partial hysterectomy to save your life. I'm afraid you won't be able to carry children in the future." Her words hit me like a physical blow. Not only had I lost my baby, but I'd lost any chance of ever carrying another child. I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably as Mike held me, his own tears falling silently. The days following my return home from the hospital were the darkest of my life. The nursery we had lovingly prepared now stood as a painful reminder of our loss. Returning to work was a challenge I wasn't sure I was ready for. How could I care for other people's children when I'd lost my own? But I knew I couldn't hide away forever. My first day back, I barely made it through the door before breaking down. The sympathetic looks from my colleagues, the sound of children in the waiting room, it was all too much. Dr. Thompson, the clinic director, called me into his office. "Sheila," he said gently, "I can't imagine what you're going through. But I want you to know we're here for you. If you need more time, or if you'd like to consider a different role for a while, just say the word." His kindness broke through the wall I'd built around my emotions. Through tears, I admitted, "I don't think I can face treating children right now. It's too painful." Dr. Thompson nodded understandingly. "How about working as an administrator for a while? You know the clinic inside out, and it would give you time to heal without the daily reminders." Grateful for the lifeline he'd thrown me, I agreed. The change in roles gave me something to focus on, a way to feel useful without constantly confronting my loss. At home, Mike and I started seeing a grief counselor. Dr. Evans, a calm, compassionate woman, helped us navigate the turbulent waters of our emotions. "It's okay to not be okay," she'd remind us. "Grief isn't linear. There will be good days and bad days. The important thing is to face them together." Slowly, painfully, we began to heal. We talked about our lost child, sharing our dreams and sorrows. We cried together, held each other, and gradually found moments of peace amidst the storm of grief. But Linda remained a constant source of tension. She seemed unable or unwilling to understand the depth of our loss or the permanence of our situation. Things came to a head at my birthday dinner. Mike had arranged a small gathering, just close family and friends. It was the first time I'd felt up to socializing since the loss. But it was Linda who started the conversation first. "Sheila, dear," she said, "I've been doing some research. There are all sorts of new fertility treatments these days. I'm sure if we find the right doctor." I cut her off. "You know," I said cautiously, "Mike and I have been talking. We've been thinking that maybe, someday, we might consider adoption." The table fell silent. I looked around, hoping for support, but was met with mixed reactions. Mike squeezed my hand encouragingly, but Linda's face twisted in disgust. "Adoption," she spat out the word as if it tasted bad. "Oh no, that won't do at all. Can you imagine? Some stranger's child, probably with all sorts of problems. Who knows what kind of family they came from? No, you need your own child, not some cast-off." I felt as if I'd been slapped. Mike's face darkened with anger. "Mom," he said, his voice dangerously low, "I think it's time for you to leave." As Linda gathered her things, muttering about ungrateful children, I sat frozen, tears streaming down my face. Our healing, as fragile as it was, felt shattered all over again. In the days that followed, Linda tried to reach out, leaving voicemails and sending text messages. But neither Mike nor I was ready to face her. We needed time to process and heal. At work, I threw myself into my new administrative role. The distance from direct patient care was helping, but I still felt a pang every time I heard a child's laughter echoing down the hallway. Dr. Thompson was supportive, always checking in to make sure I was coping okay. One afternoon, as I was filing some paperwork, I overheard two nurses talking in hushed tones. "Did you hear about Dr. Sheila?" one whispered. "I heard she was drinking during her pregnancy. No wonder she lost the baby." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Where had they heard such a horrible lie? I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol since before we started trying for a baby. Shaking, I retreated to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall as tears streamed down my face. How could anyone think that? How could they be so cruel? When I got home that evening, I told Mike what I'd overheard. His face turned red with anger. "That's it," he growled, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling my mother. She's the only one who would spread such vicious lies." I listened as Mike confronted Linda, his voice rising with each passing moment. "How dare you?" he shouted. "Do you have any idea what you've done? If you don't stop this right now, we're going to the police. This is slander, Mom." After he hung up, Mike pulled me into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry, Sheila. I never thought she'd stoop this low." The next day, the rumors at work seemed to have mysteriously dried up. No one mentioned anything about drinking or my lost baby. It seemed Linda had gotten the message. But our relief was short-lived. A few days later, I opened our mailbox to find a postcard. On the front was a picture of a happy family with young children. When I turned it over, my blood ran cold. In bold letters, someone had written, "You will never be a mother." The postcards kept coming, each one more hurtful than the last. Then, one morning, we opened our front door to find a horrifying sight. A doll, smeared with what looked like blood, hung from our porch with a note attached, "This is what you did to your baby." I collapsed, overcome with grief and horror. Mike caught me, his own face a mask of shock and rage. As he helped me inside, a thought struck him. "The neighbors," he said suddenly. "The Johnsons across the street have security cameras. Maybe they caught something." While I sat trembling on the couch, Mike went to talk to our neighbors. He returned an hour later, a grim look on his face and a flash drive in his hand. "You're not going to believe this," he said, plugging the drive into our TV. The grainy footage showed our porch in the early hours of the morning. A figure approached, hung the doll, and quickly retreated. Even in the poor quality video, there was no mistaking who it was. Linda. We stared at the screen in disbelief. How could she do this? How could a mother be so cruel to her own son and daughter-in-law? We pulled up to Linda's tidy suburban home, its cheerful exterior a stark contrast to the ugliness we were about to confront. Mike took a deep breath, squeezing my hand before we got out of the car. "Ready?" he asked, his voice tight with tension. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We walked up to the front door, and Mike rang the bell. Moments later, Linda appeared, her face lighting up at the sight of us. "Mike, Sheila. What a lovely surprise," she exclaimed, reaching out to hug us. Mike stepped back, his face hard. "We need to talk, Mom. Now." Linda's smile faltered, but she ushered us inside. Once we were seated in her living room, Mike didn't waste any time. "We know what you've been doing," he said, his voice cold. "The postcards, the doll." Linda's face went pale, then flushed with indignation. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Save it, Mom," Mike cut her off. "We have proof." I pulled out the flash drive and handed it to Mike. He plugged it into Linda's TV and played the security footage. We watched in silence as the video showed Linda hanging the blood-smeared doll on our porch. When the video ended, Linda sat in stunned silence, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Why?" I finally asked, my voice breaking. "How could you do this to us?" "To me?" Linda's face crumpled, tears filling her eyes. But instead of remorse, I saw only anger and bitterness. "You," she spat, pointing a finger at me. "You're the reason my son doesn't have children. You're damaged goods, and you're keeping him from having a family." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I recoiled, tears springing to my eyes. Mike stood up, his face contorted with rage. "That's enough," he shouted. "Sheila is my wife, and I love her. What happened wasn't her fault. If you can't accept that, if you can't treat her with respect, then you're no longer a part of our lives." As we turned to leave, Linda called out, her voice desperate. "Wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I just wanted grandchildren so badly. Please, don't go." But we didn't look back. We walked out of Linda's house, closing the door on that chapter of our lives. Over the next few weeks, we focused on healing. We continued our sessions with Dr. Evans, working through our grief and the trauma of Linda's actions. Life was just starting to feel normal again when the unexpected happened. An invitation arrived in the mail. Linda was hosting a Thanksgiving dinner and wanted us to attend. She wrote that she wanted to make peace and promised a celebration we'd remember for a lifetime. I was immediately wary. After everything that had happened, it was hard to trust Linda's intentions. "I don't know about this, Mike," I said, handing him the invitation. "It feels off." Mike read it, his brow furrowed. "I know, but she's still my mom, Sheila. Maybe she's genuinely trying to make amends?" I could see the hope in his eyes, the love he still held for his mother, despite everything. It tugged at my heart. "Okay," I agreed reluctantly. "We'll go. But at the first sign of trouble, we leave. Deal?" When Thanksgiving arrived, we drove to Linda's house with a mix of hope and apprehension. The house was full of relatives and friends, all chatting and laughing. Linda greeted us warmly, as if the past few months had never happened. But then, halfway through the evening, the doorbell rang. Linda excused herself to answer it, and when she returned, she wasn't alone. With her was a woman I'd only seen in old photos, Mike's ex-fiancée, Jessica. My stomach dropped. Something was very wrong. Linda clinked her glass, calling for everyone's attention. "I have an announcement to make," she said, her voice sickly sweet. "As you all know, my dear son Mike has been married to Sheila for a few years now." She paused, her eyes finding mine in the crowd. "Unfortunately, Sheila is infertile and unable to give Mike the children he deserves." A collective gasp went through the room. I felt as if I'd been punched in the gut. Mike grabbed my hand, his face a mask of shock and anger. Linda continued, gesturing to Jessica. That's why I've invited Jessica here tonight. She and Mike were once engaged, and I think it's time they rekindled that relationship. Jessica can give Mike the family he needs. The room fell silent. I could feel all eyes on me, a mixture of pity and curiosity in their gazes. Mike started to speak, but I beat him to it. Something in me snapped, and all the pain and anger I'd been holding back came pouring out. How dare you, I said, my voice shaking but strong. How dare you trivialize what we've been through? I looked around at the stunned faces of the guests. You want to know the truth? Yes, I lost a baby. We lost a baby. And it nearly destroyed us. I turned to Linda, my anger giving me strength. And you made it so much worse. You sent us cruel postcards, left horrifying gifts on our doorstep. You spread vicious lies about me. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Linda's face had gone pale. You don't believe me? I asked the room at large. Fine. See for yourself. I pulled out my phone, queued up the security camera footage, and played it for everyone to see. The room watched in horror as Linda hung the ketchup-smeared doll on our door. The room was thick with tension following my outburst. Just as I thought things couldn't get any more intense, Jessica, Mike's ex-fiancée, stepped forward and cleared her throat. If I may, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I'd like to say something. All eyes turned to her, including Linda's, who looked expectant, as if Jessica was about to save the situation. How wrong she was. First of all, Jessica continued, I want to apologize to Sheila and Mike. I had no idea about any of this. Linda told me that she wanted to talk to me about my parents. If I had known the truth, I never would have come. She took a deep breath before dropping another bombshell. But more than that, I need to set the record straight. Linda, your plan was doomed from the start. I'm engaged to someone else. We're getting married in the spring. Gasps echoed around the room. Linda's face paled even further. But that's not all, Jessica went on. The real reason Mike and I broke up years ago was because I never wanted children. In fact, I had surgery to ensure I couldn't have them. Mike found out, and that's why we ended our relationship. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. Linda had tried to replace me with a woman who couldn't, and didn't want to, have children either. One by one, people began gathering their coats and bags. The party was clearly over. Linda stood in the middle of her living room, looking bewildered as her carefully orchestrated Thanksgiving fell apart around her. Wait, she called out weakly. Where is everyone going? The turkey. But no one was listening. The last guest slipped out the door, leaving just the four of us, Mike, me, Jessica, and Linda. Jessica turned to us. I should go too. Again, I'm so sorry for everything. With that, she quickly made her exit. Mike took a step towards his mother, his face a storm of emotions. Mom, he said, his voice low and controlled, what you've done here tonight is unforgivable. I don't want to hear your excuses. You're no longer my mother. I don't want to see you or speak to you ever again. As we stepped out into the cool night air, I heard Linda's anguished cries behind us. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. We decided that we needed to make a clean break. We sent out emails to all our relatives, explaining that we were cutting all ties with Linda. It was a difficult decision, but we knew it was necessary for our mental health and the well-being of our future family. In the weeks following the disastrous Thanksgiving dinner, Mike and I found ourselves at a crossroads. After many long, heartfelt discussions, we made a decision that would change our lives forever. We decided to adopt. The process was lengthy and, at times, overwhelming. We filled out countless forms, underwent home studies, and attended parenting classes. But with each step, we felt more certain that this was the right path for us. Immersing myself in the adoption process allowed me to focus on something positive, pushing the painful memories of Linda's actions to the back of my mind. I even felt strong enough to return to my job as a pediatrician. Just a week later, we received the news we'd been hoping for: we'd been approved for adoption. Our caseworker called to tell us about a 3-year-old boy named Ethan who needed a forever home. The day we met Ethan was one I'll never forget. He was small for his age, with a mop of curly brown hair and the biggest brown eyes I'd ever seen. He was shy at first, hiding behind his social worker's legs, but it didn't take long for his curious nature to win out. "Do you like dinosaurs?" he asked Mike timidly, holding up a worn T-Rex toy. Mike's face lit up. "I love dinosaurs. Did you know that T-Rex had the strongest bite of any land animal ever?" Ethan's eyes widened with wonder, and just like that, a connection was formed. One day, as we were preparing to leave after a visit, Ethan looked up at us with those big brown eyes and asked, "Are you going to be my new mommy and daddy?" Mike and I exchanged glances, our eyes filling with tears of joy. "We'd like to be," I said softly. "Would you like that?" Ethan nodded enthusiastically, then threw his arms around us both. As we drove home that day, my heart felt fuller than it had in years. We still had a long road ahead, paperwork to complete, adjustments to make, a lifetime of love to give. But for the first time in a long time, I felt truly hopeful about the future.